Hello everyone and welcome to This Nintendo Life episode 185. My name is MBZ and I'm alive. I've made it to the end of 2020. I'm joined by another survivor of the hellscape of this year. It's Bally. How you doing? Coming out of the flames, smoke on your back. How you feeling, Bally, at the end of this year?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's good to be at the end of this year and hopefully 2021 can go in the right direction.
Yeah, we'll see. But here we are. It's the last show of the year, the last official main show, which means that we are, of course, going to be talking about the best video games that came out and arguing and deciding on a list together. So that'll be coming up later. But we've got a lot of things to talk about, a lot of video game stuff going on. Bally, do you want to let people know what the show's going to be like today?
For our first segment, we've got a little bit of a news roundup. There's been the Game Awards, the Sephiroth drop, the Indie World, the Super Nintendo World tour from Miyamoto. So we're going to talk about that in the first segment. The second segment, we've got some of your personal games of 2020 on Nintendo systems, of course. And then in the third segment, time has come. We're going to put together our top 10 joint list of Nintendo games in 2020. I think there's 20 games to cut down to 10, so going to be a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's kick things off. And I guess I think mainly we don't have a full what we've been playing segment. We will talk about playing a Sephiroth. But I feel I've been catching up on like going back to things in order to prep for Game of the Year in some senses, like replaying stuff, playing stuff I've already like I hopped back into Animal Crossing for a little bit and things like that. So but yes, the Game Awards happened and they were fine, I think. I don't know. This year was okay, generally. Obviously, Jeff had to do it in a different weird circumstance where it's online and they had people in Zoom calls accepting awards and that type of thing. And
I think considering it was online and it was a Zoom calls, it was actually incredibly smooth and highly
It was
produced.
slick, yeah.
If
you can't fault Keeley for a slick show, a slick presentation. That's very much his MO, and he did a good job with it. Generally not a lot of Nintendo announcements. There was a Ghosts and Goblins remake, which, if I'm honest, looks so ugly. I hate that art style. It just not.
Is that what people are crying out for? They want more Ghosts and Goblins. I mean,
look, Greg Leahy at RFN wants more Ghosts and Goblins. I don't know if anyone else does, but there are some people out there. There are some people out there who are masochists. I've tried Ghosts and Goblins. It is like, I would never want to play that game in my life. It's like the hardest fucking game I've ever played. It seems ridiculous and stupid. But hey, that's good. It's one of those things where I think I look at old franchises that are being brought back, and I believe Ghosts and Goblins is a Capcom thing. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think so. And Capcom have generally done a good job reviving old IP, or like at least giving them new life. Like you think about the recent run of, the RE2 remake, Resident Evil 7, Monster Hunter World, Devil May Cry 5. Like Capcom are kind of back and like firing on all cylinders. So I don't know, it kind of feels a bit weird to put out this game. Again, I can't remember if Capcom even make Ghosts and Goblins. Is it a Konami thing? Because it would make more sense if it was a Konami thing and it looked this bad. Because boy, they aren't a video game company anymore. But yeah, aside from that, I mean, the biggest thing was finding out who the new Smash character was, because the day before, Nintendo was like, tune in to the Game Awards to find out the new Smash Brothers character, and no leaks, nothing. They're fighting Galeem, everyone's there, and I was like, who's it going to be? A giant fucking slice goes through the ball, and I'm like, okay, someone...
It was feeling quite anime, and I was thinking...
It was feeling quite anime.
This is setting up to potentially be Sora.
It was like very dusty and dirty. I was like, is this the Keystone or whatever the fucking Keyblade Graveyard or what people talk about with Kingdom Hearts? No, it was not the Keyblade Graveyard. It was in fact, and a suit like you hear the first note of that music and I lost my fucking mind, because like that is so synonymous. Like Sephiroth's music is iconic to a strong degree, and then you just see this motherfucker floating in the sky, and Cloud looks up and is like, Sephiroth, and then here he is, fucking in his glowing hair and his giant fucking sword. It's kind of amazing, and I know, like, hey, it's another anime sword boy, right? Who wants more anime sword boys? Everyone complains about them, but you know what? If there was ever going to be an anime sword boy that everyone can agree on, it's going to be fucking Sephiroth, isn't it?
He was never on people's list of anime sword boys in the same way.
No, and I think partially it's like, you look at Square Enix and what they've given to Smash Brothers. Cloud, when he came, had such little music go with him that I think Sakurai was almost like, well, that fucking sucks. How do I worm more music out of Square Enix, right? Like, can we do this? So it's nice. I think it is nice, or would have been nice, to have a different Final Fantasy rep from a different Final Fantasy game. But given the current circumstance with the remake and how big a buzz that is causing, marketing-wise, this is just the right move for Nintendo to do. And it also gives them another villain.
And Square might have been like, you're not getting anyone else. It's got to be Sephiroth. He's our man right now. You're not getting anyone else.
And it does fit that theme of, like, they are adding a lot more villains to Smash, right? Like, that was the big thing with Ridley's reveal trailer, was like showing all the villains, and then it's Ridley. And King K. Rool is another one who got added for this game. So that is very, very cool. And yeah, I don't know. I think the internet collectively lost their minds about Sephiroth. So that's 3 characters down for this Fighters Pass. We've got 3 more, Bally. Are you willing to weigh in? Any thoughts on how this will conclude?
Yeah, we were discussing this. We were kind of like talking about Crash Bandicoot and how I kind of feel like
a lot of people thought it would be Crash revealed at the Game Awards. So
pardon?
A lot of people thought Crash was going to be revealed at the Game Awards. So
yeah,
that's another one that's definitely up there in the rankings of what people think might happen.
I think you were saying Ori is kind of too small fry to be considered.
But also, like, we've already got one Microsoft rep on this pass already with Steve, so that's where I think it's a little suspect of, do you allow multiple characters from the same company, outside of them being first-party Nintendo characters?
Yeah, and Sephiroth kind of kicks Sora into long grass for a while, certainly.
It really does, it really does.
So I think it's really hard to predict, to be honest. I don't know. I don't. I mean, I was always like, Sora, Master Chief seem fairly likely. I think both of them seem not very likely right now, but
potentially, but who knows? I definitely think we are due one boring Nintendo character that no one will care about, but will tie into some marketing for a new game. And we are due one crazy third-party character, which I hope they save for the end. I hope the very final reveal is just the biggest, ridiculous, most crazy third-party character that we could imagine. But we'll see. What
do you think of other Game Awards stuff?
I mean, Last of Us won everything, which was expected.
Yeah, all the awards more or less went the way we would expect, which was fine.
Hades did win some stuff, which was nice. It should have won Game of the Year, but hey, that's what happens. This is, as I was saying to you, you were like, if it's not going to be Hades, what's it? Is it ever going to be another indie game? And I'm like, look, man. This is the way that these awards work, is they are so AAA focused that as much as people love Hades in our sphere, like when you talk about the wider games world, it just doesn't register on people's radars, right? Last of Us is just has the money, has the budget, has the visuals, and for the most part, people love that game, right? So it's going to win, and it's not really a competition.
I think we just have zero understanding of how outlets abroad feel about these 2 games, and seeing as they make up most of the judging panel, it's impossible.
Because I would say that there's a lot of the US outlets that vote in the Game Awards are probably leaning towards Hades, right? Like, from what I have seen from people posting up.
If it were US only, I think Hades would have a better chance, but obviously there's non-American outlets definitely skewing it more towards the bigger AAAs.
Yes, for sure. And a lot of that has to do, I think, with some of these non-American outlets being quite small, which means smaller staff sizes, which means less people play a game like Hades, which means more people play the big games, which is why you get stuff like Ghost of Tsushima and Doom Eternal nominated, right, in the first place.
Yeah, and regardless of who's played what, Jeff kind of sends over the email or whatever to fill out, and each outlet can fill that out in any way they perceive to be right, regardless of who's played what, like some might have a discussion, some might just give it to a single person, like, you don't know, it just depends on which outlet. So
there's no real set rules for that stuff. But otherwise, I don't know, it was an okay show. I did go to sleep early because I was like, after Sephiroth, I was like, nothing is going to top this for the rest of the show.
My highlight of the show was the trailer and description of It Takes Two from Joseph Fares. Honestly.
Yes, I agree.
I think that was just after you went to sleep, and I thought that game looks very impressive. And coming out
like
next year.
Bertel Horberg, we're big Fares fans here. Obviously, I think A Way Out has many issues, and it's in its storytelling and characterization.
But it looks like he's trying to take that formula and kind of make it a bit zanier, crazier, and still keep it 2-player co-op.
I mean, I will always play a Fares game just because he's always trying to push the boundary of narrative and mechanics, and that is like my favorite thing. So no matter what, like
that trailer looked like it was Mario Party-esque levels of stuff you were doing and zaniness.
Yeah, it looks a lot different to the tone of what he's done before in terms of it's much more like almost like a rom-com, like animated film, right?
Yes.
Like it's very, very cool, and I hope it's good. I hope it kind of takes what they learned from A Way Out and just improves on it, because that would be great. And I look forward to playing that with you next year. I believe March it's coming out.
Yeah.
So
probably not going to have online co-op, but we'll see.
Probably not. Yeah, and that was about it. Microsoft announced Perfect Dark. That's relevant to Nintendo. Perfect Dark. Don't know what that's going to be.
Yes, lots of cinematic zero gameplay announcements that are a long way away, and series that I don't personally am not invested in.
Too many horror games, Bally. I always say this to you every time we're sitting there watching these events. I'm like, why are there so many scary horror games all the time? Why did they just announce all of these? That's all they announce. That's all I see.
There's a lot.
It's too much. But we played Sephiroth, Bally, and this was a weird thing because, so we also watched the Sakurai Presents where he just talked through Sephiroth. He also announced some Mii costumes, so we got Mii costumes for Barret and for Tifa and for Aerith, and then R.I.P. Gino fans once more, Gino costume again, which that was inevitable, right? Like,
and the Chocobo Miis.
Those were both. I believe those were both added with Cloud in the Wii U version as Mii costumes. So we've seen these Mii costumes before. He's basically doing the thing where he's just slowly re-adding all the Mii costumes from the Wii U version back into the Switch game. So Gino finally here again, unfortunately for people who for some reason think Gino has any fucking shot in hell of getting in Smash Brothers. But I mean, those people exist, sure. And there wasn't a lot else aside from him just kind of walking through Sephiroth's moves. We do have the explanation for Cloud that it's his different outfits that change his Omni Slash smash move.
Right.
So it's not just if he's fighting Sephiroth that it does that special edition of it. I believe it's a tie-in with Advent Children, and so it's if he's wearing the Advent Children outfit, then he does the special Omni Slash. But yeah, Sephiroth is here. We played him a bunch. I played him a bunch yesterday. I went through the classic mode, which is just fighting every boss in the game back to back, which is fun because Sephiroth is like, that trailer opens with him like killing the final boss of Smash Ultimate. So I think he can take on pretty much any other boss in the game, which makes sense. But so they added this limited time mode to the game, which is Fight Sephiroth, and I didn't realize this when I was watching the presentation. I thought Sakurai was joking about unlocking him early and then saying, oh yes, we had this idea to make it so that if you only beat it on very hard, you would unlock Sephiroth early. Because Sephiroth technically, official release date is the 23rd of December, and today's the 19th of December, and we're already playing Sephiroth, because you can just go there, play on easy, beat Sephiroth, and you unlock him early, which I think is pretty cool. It's one of those things where I'm like, why wouldn't everyone just do this? Who's going to wait until December 23rd?
I would have liked him to stick by his guns and gone for the very hard. I think that would have been fun. Even if I couldn't have done it, I think it just is a silly Sakurai thing that would have been hilarious.
It probably would have been. I think I would have got annoyed at it because I would have wanted to talk about it on this show and how Sephiroth plays, and that type of thing. But also, like, just seeing other people on Twitter being like, I unlocked Sephiroth. I would have been like, all right.
You would have been banging your head up against that wall trying to beat it very hard.
Yeah, I would have been. I tried it yesterday, and I was like, woof, no thank you. I probably would have looked up on the internet like cheap ways to like throw him off the side to kill him type of deal, because he does have HP, and that's one of the least favorite things about this thing is it's fucking HP battle. It's like, come on, man, who wants HP battle? I hate those. So anyway, we played Sephiroth a bunch. We've played some this morning. How do you feel about Sephiroth, Bal? You were telling me he's your favorite of the DLC fighters.
Probably.
So
I mean, it's a low bar to be fair, because I don't think I've really gotten into any DLC fighters in quite a while, but he just feels. Initially, I was like, okay, wow, his pacing feels very floaty, delayed, slow, a bit like Mewtwo, Lucario, but he actually packs more of a punch than them, and I don't think we play personally at a high enough level to take advantage of all of his weaknesses. And what I mean by that is I think Sakurai kept saying he leaves really big gaps after like his smash attacks and this sort of thing. And I don't think those windows are quite as large as perhaps Sakurai described, at least when I was playing as him.
Well, for us, basically, in our
exactly.
reaction time. What I will say is, like, some of his landing lag after his up B is really big to where, even for us, we can take advantage of that. And that happened multiple times in our matches.
But he's like a lightweight, floaty character that packs the punch of a heavyweight, which is a very unusual feel to him generally. And just the range on some of his sword attacks is very impressive.
And I think just him having multiple ranged options as well as just a giant reach with his sword, he just has a lot of the toolkit that I'm looking for, as well as a counter, which is my favorite thing. But his counter works a little differently in that it only works from the front. So if you're facing your opponent, as opposed to like the Fire Emblem characters where it can work from anywhere. And it also goes off even if someone doesn't attack you. So if someone's just standing in front of you, they'll still take some damage from it, albeit less damage than if they hit you with it.
And it's impressive he's got his ranged attacks as well, because Sakurai revealed those later, sort of in the direct. And
the special moves always came last,
if MBZ gets into Sephiroth, I know that I can just go to a character like a Samus who's got impressive range, and I generally do quite well against your Fire Emblem people when I'm playing Samus because of that range. I just get a load of damage in. So I was thinking, okay, but Sephiroth's got these ranged moves that counter that pretty well, especially the side special that just racks up these darkness orb things that do delayed damage, which I think is incredibly irritating and impressive.
Yeah, you have to like count out almost how many seconds it's been and then shield at the right time to stop it. And then if you're off stage, which happened multiple times where you were off stage with the darkness orb on you and it activates while you're like falling through the air and it just messes up your recovery completely.
Yeah, it's like a sticky bomb or something. It just kind of messes you up.
Yeah. But yeah, his like the arc on his up smash is just huge. That thing is ridiculous. And then like his down A also stabs through the platforms on battlefield stages. So it's just the length of his sword is just comical. And I think that's one of the things, right? We're talking about how Sephiroth is like the most 90s fucking character possible. His anime long sweeping hair, his giant fucking sword. And yet there is still something about him that is very cool even in 2020. And I don't know if that's just nostalgia for people or if it's sensibilities have come back around or something.
He's just a very well-designed character. I think a lot of them are in Final Fantasy VII. I think Remake showed that, wow, in like a AAA 3D setting, these characters really look awesome.
Yeah, they hold up. Even like Tifa and her weird like slacks and stuff like kind of still works in 2020. It's an Aerith. I mean, Aerith's just in a dress the whole time, which, I don't know, probably not the best battle outfit, but to be honest, she is like staying away from enemies for the most part and like throwing magic out, so it maybe does make some sense. Yeah, I think that it's just a really well-made character, and obviously, you know, all these characters have one thing that's unique about them. For Sephiroth, is one black wing, the one-winged angel, which it's a bit of a weird one because it kind of just pops up when you've taken a bunch of damage and then you just do a bunch more damage. It's almost like a revenge mechanic, but even more so, where if you are behind in stocks, you will pop it earlier, or if you are really ahead, it might not pop until much later for you. So it's kind of a bit of a balancing mechanic somewhat to get Sephiroth back in the fight.
I think there's some pretty crazy maths behind when it comes out, which is quite strange.
And also Sakurai was talking about like the most powerful part of the sword is the middle, and he lined up a bunch of Kirby's to display this.
Kirby's up for slaughter. Look,
Kirby is his baby. He can do what he wants with Kirby. So like stabbing a bunch of Kirbys, that's in Sakurai's MO, you know, like that's what he's gonna do. So that was fun to watch, and I think I'm gravitating towards Sephiroth as a character that I will play a lot of and will try and learn and will probably enter my main rotation. Look, he's an anime sword boy. That's all I play in Smash Brothers is anime sword boy. So all of you people complaining about them, get out of here. I love those anime sword boys. Great. Well, Sephiroth was one thing. However, Nintendo also announced that they were going to have an Indie World presentation. which was different, obviously, than their partner showcases, because they announced like the last partner showcase was going to be the last one of the year, but that didn't preclude them from a different type of presentation, of which we got two this week for some reason, because one of them was about the fucking theme park as well. But the indie world to start with was okay. I think you were less up on it than I was, Bally, overall.
Yeah, I think it was definitely one of the weakest they've done, and for me it just felt like it came at a very strange time where there weren't a ton of shadow drops on the day, and there weren't a ton of big new announcements. So for me, it felt like this might have been stronger had it come in January or February. Like, it just felt like a bit of a strange time to drop it.
Yeah, it would have been nice if like Cyber Shadow had come out as a shadow drop. I think that would have been a big deal, but that was given a delay to 2021. That's probably the game from this presentation that I'm the most excited about playing personally. And you know, that will be end of January, I believe, so it's coming soon. The biggest shocker for me is that Super Meat Boy Forever is coming out, and it's coming out in 4 days. It's coming out the 23rd of December. Hello? What? This is one of those games that like was announced, I believe, for an April 2019 release, and then was just cancelled for that release date. And since then, we've had literally no idea when it's going to come out.
Yeah.
Bally, you chose it for your Fantasy Critic League, and then decided that it's, you know, it's vaporware, it's never coming out, so you just dropped it, and now it's coming out again. So there you go.
Exactly.
But to be honest, it's not like people are going to review this game for the 23rd of December.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I guess press might have it now, right? Like, I imagine people are playing that game at the moment and reviewing it.
Press have it now. They might line up a review video-wise or written, and then just schedule it to come on, you know, when the embargo's up. Who knows? But
exactly.
I feel like Super Meat Boy originally came out in what, 2011?
I believe
like,
it was 2010, actually.
2010. Like, it's been a long-ass time, and I think that there was obviously a lot of hype around Super Meat Boy, and obviously when it came to systems like Switch, I think it rejuvenated a bit of that hype, but this game feels like it's been delayed and come so late that the fact that it is kind of just mentioned within an indie world as like a smaller announcement within that indie world, I think it does show how the industry has changed and just how many incredible indies have come out since, and how a lot of the hype around Meat Boy has perhaps subsided a bit, which it is a shame, because I think the original is very, very good, and I'm sure this game will be very good as well.
I think the difference here is that after Meat Boy finished, Tommy and Edmund McMillan just didn't work together anymore. So like, this game is being worked on by Tommy Refness mainly, who was one half of Team Meat, and Team Meat doesn't exist, right? Because Edmund McMillan went on to make Binding of Isaac and all these other games, and he's done a bunch of different stuff.
But Tommy's the mechanics guy, Edmund's the art guy.
Well, I think Edmund actually was level design as well, so like, that's why this game is not really the same. This game is more of a runner type game, but it's more like Bit Trip Runner, I would say, right, where it's more hand designed. Although I believe there are maybe elements in there of endless stuff that's going on.
I was going to say, the levels in the trailer certainly looked a lot less runner than it did before.
Yeah, I think they've kind of like made some adjustments to it, but it definitely still, that's the core of the game, because it was originally going to be a mobile only game, and now it's coming to console day one and PC as well. So I think they probably have pivoted some of the design, but it's definitely not. It's a completely different art style, obviously, because Edmund was the art style guy as well. So it's a bit of a different beast, and I think partially because of those reasons, as well as what you mentioned, it's been so long, and Meat Boy is probably not like the prime candidate of the indie world anymore. Yeah, it's probably not going to make as big of a splash, but I'm still really interested in it, and I might just pick it up on Switch day one just to play it, because I adore the original Super Meat Boy. It's one of the best games ever. Like, it's the progenitor of the current trend of hard as nails platformers. Like, you don't have stuff like Celeste without Super Meat Boy. And
you did go back to Meat Boy, I think, I think you rebooted it up when I played it, and you were a bit like, I'm not sure this handles quite as finally as I remember.
Definitely. I think it is one of those things that you do have to get back into, and I think if I did get back into it, I'd be like, oh right, like this is how this plays, I remember now. But yeah, it was a bit tricky to pick back up again. Cool. And yeah, there were a couple other things that I thought were neat. Spelunky 1 and 2 are finally coming to Switch, but it seems like it's going to be summer 2021, so I don't know if that's too little too late.
That was just weird, because normally when a port comes in an indie world, it's either the drop is either like shadow dropped, or it's like a few days away or a month away. It felt very strange to open with Spelunky 1 and 2 and then say, oh yeah, it's coming summer 21, you know?
Yeah.
That's what felt weird about this Direct.
I think part of it is Sony exclusivity for Spelunky 2 on PlayStation. I think that might be one of the issues going on there, but I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm more likely to check out Spelunky when it does come to Switch because it seems like the platform for it, but, you know, we'll see when it does come out.
Is 1 coming, like, later as well?
Yeah, 1 and 2 are both going to be summer.
It just seems weird that it wouldn't just drop 1 now before Christmas and then 2's later. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, it is a bit strange. It is, you're right. But anyway, the other known quantity here is Grindstone, which was a big hit on Apple Arcade. I had been sent a review code from Pop Agenda for Grindstone on Switch, so I will be playing that over the holiday, and we'll probably talk about it on the next show. So I look forward to digging into Grindstone, because I know a lot of people really like that game. And then their final thing, unfortunately for the internet, was not Hollow Knight Silk Song, which I'm sure we'll find out more about soon, because it seems more and more likely that is going to be Edge's cover for December.
Confident that'll be first quarter 21?
I'm not confident, no, but I do think that we will know a lot more about Silk Song soon, hopefully. The final drop was Among Us is on Switch, because of course it is, right? Like, you know, these big games that define the year, like Fall Guys, Among Us, they're both inevitably coming to Switch. Fall Guys I still think is probably a bit of a ways off, but Among Us, a much easier game probably just to put on Switch, just looking at it, and hey, there you go. Now everyone can continue to play this game endlessly, a game which I still haven't played. My sister was telling me that for her work Christmas party they were all going to play Among Us, and she was like, I'm not playing a video game. I'm like, you should do that. Go on, play Among Us with them.
I'm tempted. I've got sort of a Christmas work Zoom thing on Monday, I think, or Tuesday, and I was thinking, could they handle Among Us? Shall I try it? And
are they technically savvy enough to figure out Among Us? This is the question.
I don't know.
Valley.
I think it's what I think. I think they're not into games, so I think it might be. Might be a better idea.
So you say that, but like Among Us, I think has broken past the idea of video games. It's more like just a social thing,
right? But I think it's easier for them if I just boot up an online version of Avalon, perhaps, rather than
probably
try and teach them Among Us, where you do have to run around with a character, do things.
Yes,
and there are video game things in that game. You know,
yeah, so of course, that makes sense. Cool. Yeah, there are a few other cool things in there, but for the most part, that's what piqued my interest. And then yesterday, we watched together the Super Nintendo World thing with Miyamoto being a very happy dad and just like running around with all his creations that, you know, just think about this man who at one point 30 years ago was sitting probably in a basement with some graph paper and drew a little figure on there that was Mario and drew a little mushroom next to him, and now he's standing next to a giant fucking Mario in a theme park made after all of his creations. He must be fucking thrilled. Like, he looks so happy just going through Peach's castle, like looking at the Mario Kart ride. It looks pretty cool. I think that the one thing that we were talking about was like, your hand is going to hurt a fucking lot if you're punching these blocks non-stop in this park. Because all you do, apparently, is just fucking punch blocks and, like, fill up a meter.
But, you know, we're adults. I think we know when to hold back on something. What I'm more concerned about is all those kids who are just going to break their wrists on these blocks. And if Mario can do it, I can do it.
There are going to be so many stories of like 10-year-old breaks 2 wrists fucking punching question mark blocks in Nintendo Land.
Yeah, or like headbutting the question mark block. So I was saying how like there's a Bob-omb painting in Peach's castle, and I joked about how they're going to need to put up like a barrier, a bit like platform 9 3/4 in King's Cross, to stop people jumping into the wall.
Stop children thinking that it's Mario 64
exactly.
in real life and that they're going to get sent to Bob-omb Battlefield. What would be amazing is if they did build like a secret Bob-omb Battlefield part of the park, like outside somewhere,
that
where
would
you
be
did
cool.
actually jump through it. But
if you look at the geography of it is actually a very small area of land, especially in comparison to sort of Galaxy's Edge, which is the new Star Wars area of the Disney parks. So like, I'm intrigued. I do think Disney are better at these things than Universal from my experience. However, I think what they've done so far looks very impressive, and like it's something I want to see.
Yeah, I think we didn't see too much of the rides, unfortunately. We only kind of got a glimpse at the Mario Kart thing.
I think, to my knowledge, there are only basically like 2 rides. It is the main high budget one is the Mario Kart augmented reality experience, and the second one I believe is like a Yoshi go round kind of fairly rudimentary go round kind of ride.
Oh, okay. Weird.
To my knowledge, but yeah.
I mean, looking at the park, it did seem a lot more just like, hey, this is just fun theming more than anything else. Like, you just walk around and you punch blocks and you probably buy some popcorn out of a fucking star like Miyamoto had. And
mushroom
you just
flavor.
Look at everything. Take pictures. Yeah, mushroom flavor. God, Jesus, what? Take pictures of stuff. Hang out with Mario and Luigi. There are probably a bunch of toads. The restaurant looked very cool as well. That was neat.
That is very Japan. That's something me and Caroline really noticed going to Disneyland Japan, was like Tokyo was just the food and all the decorations on the food, and that's something that I just haven't seen to the same degree with like American theme parks. So that might be unique to Osaka.
Yeah, well, just in Japan generally, themed cafes are just a genre of cafe, right?
Yeah.
Like you have the Kirby cafe, or you have the Final Fantasy cafe, right, where they have food that is specifically made in the shape of all these things. And it's one of those things where I look at that and I'm like, do I really want to eat this? This just looks so good, right? Like, it's just really well made, and it's almost
you gotta Instagram it and then you eat it. That's the key.
Exactly. Yes, totally. You got to get your Insta first, then you down your gob. Yeah, I would love to go to this place one day. Obviously, when the world is not a nightmare on fire, which who knows how long that will be. And they are bringing it to other parts of the world, right? It's going to be in America. It's going to be in Orlando and stuff.
Orlando, Los Angeles, and Singapore, apparently. So
yeah. It looks great, honestly. Very, very polished, as every Nintendo product tends to be. So very cool stuff. Great. Well, I think that's going to close us for the first segment. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back after this break with some of your Nintendo Games of the Year for 2020. See you in a bit. Alright folks, welcome back to the second part of the show, and this time we're going to be going through some of your best games of the year that you have sent in to us. Mainly Nintendo stuff. I think some of you put some non-Nintendo things in there from 2020, but we're going to go through and talk about them, walk through some interesting picks that people might not have talked about as much, and that type of thing. Obviously, a lot of people wrote in and gave us very long explanations and things, and that's wonderful, and I love that. I don't think we have the time to read all out on the show, because this show is very long.
They're all on our Discord server. It's highly recommend checking those out. There's some good explanations.
Yeah, so you can head over to Discord and read people's picks in detail, because everyone went in and wrote some nice thoughts on every game. But yes, well, we've cut down some stuff and have decided to focus in on certain games that people have chosen, unless you wrote a really short entry, in which case we'll probably go through the whole thing. Speaking of which, our first entry comes from Victory Star on Discord, who at number 3, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and says, it came at a great time for the world and is a fun game to check in on every now and then. Number 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Loved the music and the story was great. Can't wait to see the next game in 2050. Truer words have not been spoken. And number 1, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Had a decent plot, but the gameplay was phenomenal for a Warriors game. So very good. Hyrule Warriors there, making a Game of the Year list, Bally.
Yeah.
At number 1.
We didn't get to Hyrule Warriors, and
no.
We both tried that demo. I think we had mixed views on it, but yeah.
I would like to play it at some point when it's not like 50 quid. That would be nice. So I'll probably get to it at some point. I did like what I played.
Is it the sort of game that would actually come down in price, or because
I think
got
so.
That Breath of the Wild label, is it gonna not?
It does have that label to it. I do believe Nintendo also published it, which is an issue because Nintendo published games, as we know, can stay at high prices. However, two examples. Metroid Other M and Codename Steam, both Nintendo published games that went into the bargain bin very quickly. I don't think that's going to happen.
They are very rare, but yes, you are right.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen with Hyrule Warriors because it's already like the best-selling Warriors game of all time. But
yeah, I don't think it's happened to a Switch game yet.
No, it hasn't. Maybe Sushi Striker actually. Sushi Striker on Switch would be the one.
Yeah.
Shout out to Sushi Striker. More people need to play that game. It rules. I love that game. What a good game. Bally, our next list.
Our next list is from Matraya on Discord. He says, 2020 was much more the backlog year, and with little more rough financial situation, I didn't really play many 2020 games, so we'll include some DLC to round out a top 5. Number 5, Pokemon Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra. Number 4, Fire Emblem Three Houses Cindered Shadows. Number 3, Spiritfarer. Number 2, Animal Crossing New Horizons. And number 1, Ikenfell. At the halfway point, I really did not see this being my number 1, but here I am, giving the top spot to Ikenfell. Very few games have made me feel so heavily with the finale to this game being up there with my absolute favorites. The cast is outstanding, particularly Patricia, Ima, and Eldra. Fun
Just
combat.
give Bally names.
Names.
We love it.
Fun
we love
combat,
to see hard names.
Good story, well-designed puzzles, great music, quite possibly the most pro-LGBTQ game ever, and a heck ton of cats. This game is very much made around my taste. I look forward to playing Hades next year and it retrospectively being my number 1.
Very good. Ikenfell is a game I've heard quite a lot about from people, and I think the art style kind of puts me off. It's kind of minimalistic sprites, which I'm not a huge fan of. But I've heard enough good things about it, and especially we're trying to make it number 1, that I should probably check it out. I believe it's also on Game Pass as well as Switch, so definitely accessible to people. Our next list is from Jiff, who says, didn't play too many 2020 Switch games, unfortunately, but been into tackling my backlog full of Steam and retro games. However, I did play a couple. So we've got a top 4 here from Jiff. At number 4, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, making grand returns here, Bally. Number 3, Animal Crossing New Horizons. Number 2, a very interesting pick with Sakuna, Rice and Ruin. And Jiff says, found out a little late about this game, but a 2D action platformer plus rice farming sim sounded right up my alley, and I'm glad to say it quite was. Sakuna is the spoiled daughter of a high-ranking harvest deity and warrior deity, and after accidentally setting fire to that year's offerings to the lead goddess, she's banished to an island to purge the demons roaming it as penance. Growing of the rice empowers her and allows her to explore more parts of the island and tackle more powerful foes and the demons she faces. Pretty much all animal-based, provide her and her human companions with sustenance to survive the island. The farming is as involved as you want it to be, and it feels like the devs really did their homework here. Rice is the only thing you grow, but you make the fertilizer, till the soil, sort the seeds, plant the seeds, control the water level, harvest, thresh, and hull until you've made a nice good pot of rice for the year. It's great being able to relax a bit with farming and then beat dudes up in exploration bits. Sounds very complicated, Sakura Rice of Ruin.
It's not an action platform. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no. I've heard some good things about this game. It reviewed pretty well as well. So, and it's one that is on my radar. And then Jeff also says number 1 Hades and simply says enough said. Which, you know what, I'm down with that. Yeah. That makes sense to me.
Tim says honorable mention is a story of Seasons Friends of Mineral Town, as it is a remake. Number 5, Call of the Sea. Number 4, Spiritfarer. Number 3, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Number 2, Hades. And number 1, Animal Crossing New Horizons. Tim says, without the pandemic, my wife and I would not have bought this game. Neither of us had ever played Animal Crossing before. Instead, we enjoyed our months of quarantine by happily building up our island, sometimes playing together, sometimes separately. Over the course of a combined 200 plus hours, it was fantastic. Even in the future, I might look back and say Hades is the better game. Animal Crossing was the perfect 2020 game.
Yeah, I think everyone just has that feeling, right, of it was just there, and it was the easy thing to play, and you just play Animal Crossing, right? Like, you don't even have to worry about, am I gonna beat a boss? Am I gonna, go through this area? It's just like,
am I going to
Animal
catch
Crossing.
that stringfish before
Am
the
I
end of the
actually?
month?
You know what? There is stress. You're right.
That
Yeah. Am I
was
going to get the
stressful.
fucking stringfish before the end of the month? I got lucky with some of those actually. I got one of the hard to get fish super early before I was going to. But yeah, Bally, I'm interested. Do you have any curiosity about the remake of Friends of Mineral Town, one of your favorite games of all time?
Yeah, I probably should give it a go at some point. I think it's one of those games I need to stick on my watch list and just probably pick it up in a decent sale. Definitely worth a go. I absolutely loved Friends of Mineral Town, so I need to try.
Cool. A service writes in with top 3. Number 3, Hades. He says, I have a feeling you'll talk about this game a lot in this episode, so I won't write much, but needless to say, this game does everything right. And number 2, Manifold Garden. I mentioned in my non-2020 list that I'm a sucker for first-person puzzle games, but most of them have a similar walking around a lonely facility tone. Manifold Garden forgoes this for a stunning art style and a lighter, colourful tone, and the infinite recursion/gravity-based puzzles are ingenious. Number 1, Spiritfarer. Incredible animations, great characters, and a thoroughly addicting gameplay loop. Also, the platforming is way better than it has any right to be. This is a rare game that I can recommend to literally anyone. Manifold Garden is one of those that I've heard lots of things about and seems very cool. However, as everyone knows, I get motion sick with certain first-person games, and Manifold Garden looks exactly like one of those that would make me...
very trippy and, but...
I would vomit hard playing Manifold Garden. Acerbis loves these first-person games. I think it was Talos Principle that he brought up in the non-2020 list. And none of these games I think I can enjoy, which sucks. Like Call of the Sea as well, that Tim brought up. They're all first-person puzzle games, and yeah, I think I would just be sick. I really...
Are they on PC though? Can you help with the field of view, frame rate, that sort
I
of
don't
thing?
know. Like this is the thing. It's like some of these games it's not to do with that. Some of these games it's just to do with you're not holding something in front of you, and so just like the movement of just the screen.
Most puzzle games have like a pointer in the middle or something, but maybe that's not enough.
It didn't help with the witness. I'll tell you that
good
much.
Good point. Our next email is from PR Billy, who says, Nintendo 2020 Game of the Year. I feel like I played more remasters on Nintendo systems this year than I did original games, but I do not like to include these on lists as it feels like cheating to put Xenoblade at the top again. Number 5, Paper Mario Origami King. Number 4, Jackbox Party Pack. Number 7. Number 3 is Animal Crossing New Horizons. Number 2 is Hades. Number 1 is Spiritfarer. PR Billy says, this year is so strange. I heavily lean towards Nintendo systems over other platforms, and in an overall GOTY list, Spiritfarer might have only been in the 5th spot. What I really need this year was a relaxing game that I could continuously grind while I focused on other tasks, and that's what this game provided for me. I was able to experience the game enough on the many islands while using the sailing time to do whatever I had to do with my day. I enjoyed the stories of pretty much all of the characters, and the progression systems felt really rewarding. My only complaint about the game is that some of the backstory is relegated to the art book, and I was very confused on a few topics until I looked them up.
Yeah, Spiritfarer getting a lot of love here from our community. Yes. It's a very good game. We'll see where it lands, Bally. Gonna have that conversation. But I'm sure it'll be in there. I'm sure it'll be in the conversation. Jackpot also is mentioning Spiritfarer. He says, hey, hope you're enjoying the holidays and keeping safe. Not to be left out, I've prepared a top 3 Nintendo games of 2020. Unfortunately, I did not play too many new games on Switch, so I decided to keep it short. So number 3 is Spiritfarer. Number 2 is Animal Crossing New Horizons. And number 1, Bally, it's Bug Fables. Jackpot says, the original Paper Mario is my number 3 game of all time. Please play it for Backlog Club in brackets. And when I heard about Bug Fables, I knew I had to check it out. I was blown away with how well they nailed the vibe of the original Paper Mario plus A Thousand Year Door. Some of the puzzles are a bit more tedious than they should be. I agree with that. There's an ice block puzzle in particular where you have to hide in the ground that I found a little bit annoying. But overall, this game is a great package. For those who are looking for a fun RPG that isn't a 200-hour long behemoth, or anyone who has interest in Paper Mario, this is for you. It's a great game. I really loved Bug Fables.
We do need to put Paper Mario into our Backlog Club poll next time.
Yeah, we've had that for years of like, okay, we need to do the Mario RPG Backlog Club poll, which would be like one of the GBA games, the Paper Mario games, and then Super Mario RPG on Super Nintendo. I think that would definitely be a good choice. So we'll see. Maybe that'll be the next Backlog Club. Who knows?
Our next one is from Capsule J. He says, Dear Bally and MBZ, to me, the Switch's best feature is the ability to take games with you on the go. The problem is, in 2020, I pretty much didn't go anywhere. Thus, I had to cheat a little when making this list by including 2020 games that I played on PC but could have potentially played on Switch.
Don't worry, Capsule J. That's what we do.
That's how it works. With that technicality out of the way, here are my top 5 Nintendo games of 2020. Number 5, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Number 4, Spiritfarer. Number 3, Streets of Rage 4. Number 2, Doom Eternal. Number 1, Paper Mario or Origami King. While its combat didn't exactly stay fresh the whole time, Origami King's creativity, charm, and humor were more than enough to make this my favorite game of 2020. Part of what elevated this game to my top spot was streaming it. Experiencing this frankly absurd game with others provided some much needed levity in a really tough year. Thanks for another year of great podcasting and providing such a wonderful community. Wishing you a joyous holidays and a happy new year from Capsule J.
Thank you very much, Capsule J. A solid list there. I shout out to Streets of Rage 4, man. Obviously, we're going to talk about it next segment, but shout out, that game is very good. And I don't think enough people played it necessarily.
Yeah. This year there were quite a few big Switch games that were also day one on Game Pass, like Spiritfarer and Ori and Streets of Rage 4. So yeah, that's kind of how.
And even Doom Eternal is on Game Pass now because Microsoft fucking bought Bethesda. That happened this year. What? I'm sorry. Sometimes I lose myself in the insanity of video game news. Cool. Great list. Thanks, Capsule J. Let's go to the best list of the year, Bally. It's time.
Every year.
It's time.
Every year.
Simon writes in with my favorite list of every year.
This Nintendo Life tradition is Simon.
It's Nintendo Life tradition. Simon's list. I always look forward to it. Simon says, Dear guys at This Nintendo Life, this is my list for best games of 2020. At number 5, Streets of Rage 4. Kicking it off. Well, Simon, good stuff. Number 4, Darksiders Genesis. And Simon says, it came with a board game, which was pretty fun too. So getting extra points for the board game there, Bally, with Darksiders Genesis. Number 3, Dr. Kawashima's Brain Training for Nintendo Switch. Simon says it uses the Joy-Con's motion detection in a fun way, and it has online world championships where you can see how you're doing compared to the rest of the world. What a pick, man. And number 2, Samurai Showdown. It's fun, colourful, very Japanese, and getting a 3rd season pass next year. I mean, can you say much more? To be honest, I think a lot of people do like that Samurai Showdown game. It's a pretty cool game. But number 1, Bally, the best game, according to Simon, of 2020.
We've never even talked about this game.
We've not talked about it yet this episode. It deserves a mention, a Nintendo video game that hasn't been brought up. One of the biggest franchises in the world. At number 1, Mario Kart Live Home Circuit. Simon says, building a track is half the fun, but when you're racing on it against another physical kart, it gets way more intense than regular Mario Kart. Not a budget title, though. Very true, Simon. In order to play Mario Kart Live Home Circuit with your friends, that's $200 on the table. You just got to slap it down. Yeah. Simon definitely, having a good year, clearly. Just being able to put down $200 for, or £200 or whatever for Mario Kart Live. What a list, Bally. That's my favourite list of the year.
As always, Simon, we never really know if you're joshing with us or not, but you know what? I don't want you to ever tell us. I just want you to keep sending these lists because they're fantastic. And yeah, I think we've already said Mario Kart Live Home Circuit is like the perfect MBZ and Bally 12, 13-year-old game that we would have gone absolutely bananas for.
Totally. If we were doing this in the year 2004, let's say, and we were doing a podcast and this game came out that year, Mario Kart Live Home Circuit would be our game of the year.
100%.
Not even a question. Yeah.
Also persuading our parents to spend all that money would be a tricky ask, but totally worth it.
Totally worth it. Simon closes by saying, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody. Greetings, Simon. So, thanks, Simon. Highly appreciate that. Now we're going to have to top that list, Bally, with a list of our own, apparently. I don't know if we can do it, but we can certainly try.
We've got our own juggernauts to bring along.
We certainly do. So join us after the break when we will be discussing the top 10 video games, a joint list with me and Bally, and we'll see how it goes. See you in a bit. All right, everyone, we're back. It's time for the final segment of the last show of the year. It's time to close out 2020 in style, Bally, as always, by arguing incessantly about video games. What better joy in life is there?
I love doing it every festive season.
Yeah, of course. You know, you're sitting around the fire with your family. You got the hot chocolate, the marshmallows in there, the Bailey's hot chocolate, might I add, which me and my sister have every year. We always take a Bailey's hot chocolate selfy every year, so must continue that tradition.
That sounds like a good combo. I've not tried it.
Oh, it's really
Bailey's
good.
hot chocolate.
It's very, very nice. And obviously arguing. That's what all good families do around Christmas. So, our little podcast family here, that's what we're going to do. Hopefully it won't be too nasty this year. I think we generally liked a lot of the games that came out.
We're a little bruised from the Nintendo game of the year from last week, but we're doing all right.
It's all right. You know, there's hopefully not going to be any as strong disagreements as there were on that episode. But if you do want to listen to that, you can head over to patreon.com/ThisNintendoLife. Check it out. But we're going to talk about the video games on Nintendo platforms that came out this year. Now, caveat, some of these we did play on other platforms, but they did come out on Switch, which is why they are counted in this list. And similar to like last year, where something like Bloodstained was a terrible port on Switch, I think we will kind of bring that up if necessary, because that one I think got dinged a little bit because it's still not very good on Switch. I wish it's one of the best games of last year. I wish it was a better Switch version, but alas, that's kind of how it works. So Bally, we have a list here. How many games are on this list? Have you counted them?
I counted 20.
20 exactly.
Yes.
And we have decided that Bally, as always, wins the argument that we're going to do a top 10 as opposed to a top 5.
20 become 10.
Mainly, I was won over by the fact that our SEO will be higher because people love top 10 lists more than top 5 lists. So I'm in the tank for Google.
So welcome new listeners for finding this top 10 list. We hope you will enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for downloading this on the strength of the title being top 10 games of the year. That's how you win, the culture wars, Bally. It's by top 10s. That's all it's about. Great. Do you want to run down this list, Bally? Do you want to lay out the rules, what we're doing here?
Yeah, today we're going to get rid of some low-hanging fruit that definitely won't make the top 10, and then we might put up into the top bracket, the top 10, initially vaguely, a few games we think are locks. We think like that game was definitely worth it, and then we'll probably have a debate about the middle. And then we might go back to the top, and then we might go back to the middle. We'll just kind of see how it works out.
Basically, the idea is we're creating a joint list together of 10 games, and we're putting them in order from 10 to 1. So we have to decide where things place, where something should go above another, and just get into the nitty-gritty of it, which will be a lot of fun. And, let's just celebrate video games here, man. There's so many good things this year.
It's a good year. It's a very diverse list, I think this is, which is nice.
Totally. And even if Nintendo themselves as a publisher were not very...
active.
Yeah, let's say. The rest of this year, there's still a lot of great stuff that you could have played on your Nintendo Switch this year. So... let's get into it. Bally, do you want to read down the list of games that we have to talk about?
We have Kentucky Route Zero, Vitamin Connection, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Streets of Rage 4, Carrion, Spiritfarer, Super Punch Patrol, Hades, The Last Campfire, Carto, Fire Emblem DLC, Cindered Shadows, Blood Roots, Xenoblade Future Connected, Ninjala, Bug Fables, Paper Mario, Origami King, Spellbreak, Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2, and Panzer Paladin.
Good stuff. Interesting list. There's definitely someone here that, we can get rid of and put up. But let's start off, Bally, by cutting. Do you want to go first and take a game off the list, give it its time, and then remove it summarily from the list?
I would like to remove Vitamin Connection.
Yes, of course, that would be your first go-to pick.
Yes, this was an unusual co-op game that I played earlier. I think it might be been my first new game of the year. I might even want this. Maybe it was after Kentucky Route Zero, based where it is on this list. And played it through with Caroline, and it's only about 4 hours long, maybe. But even still, I had to nag Caroline to play more and get to the end of the game with me.
Yeah.
And that's never a good sign. And I totally see why she was so cold to want to come back. And I liked it a bit, but I wasn't having the best of time. The art style is quite stark, quite mobile gamey in a way.
It's a way forward game, right? So it kind of has
forward.
the look of a Shantae almost to some degree.
A bit, yeah. And the music's actually really killer in this game. That's probably the best bit of the game.
Oh,
and
really? Okay.
I think that some of the ways it uses the Joy-Cons is very Wiimote-like, where you are using the infrared sensor to, move the character up and down the screen, essentially, to avoid incoming projectiles and things like that. And there's a lot of waving around a bit and tilting each Joy-Con. It's got aspects that are a bit like what's that space game called? Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time.
Okay, I thought you were going to say Affordable Space Adventures.
Affordable Space Adventures, yeah. It's a little bit like that as well, totally. It's kind of like a combination of those two in some ways. And yeah, it just didn't do all the things I think I maybe thought it might, and is definitely nowhere near the top 10.
Unfortunate, but there you go, Vitamin Connection. I don't think you would have played that. We got a review copy for it, and I was like, I don't have a co-op person to play this with. Bally, here you go. So anyway, I'm going to remove Panzer Paladin from this list. Obviously, I talked about it last episode, but I wish that game was better. I could foresee a world in which I was fighting for this to be in like the lower half of a top 10. Unfortunately, it's just held back by some really archaic game design choices. But like, it has such beautiful sprite work, and some of the ideas are just so good. Like, I wish the ideas around the weapon system and the checkpointing were better implemented, because it has such a solid kind of base to go from, that I wish it were better about some of the other aspects. But unfortunately, Panzer Paladin is not. And if you want to hear more, go to the last episode, because I did talk about it quite recently, but alas, it will not make this list for me.
I'd quite like to drop Super Punch Patrol.
Yeah, I agree. It's a bummer as well, because like, we get to this point in the year and we're always like, our man Bertil, let's get him in the top 10 somehow, right? Let's go for Mextermination Force.
But I mean, his last game, Mextermination Force, was like incredible. I might even prefer that game to God, names are eluding me.
Gunman Clive.
Like, I thought that was an incredible like boss rush, and I actually played that in the same year.
Yeah, I agree. I think it might be his best game, actually. I think Extermination Force is his best game.
Like this almost Cuphead style boss. I think I played it in the same year as Cuphead, actually, and I thought that game was tremendous. Like, a real sort of surprise. And that game doesn't get talked about enough. So if you've not played Extermination Force, play it.
Yes.
I can't say the same about Super Punch Patrol.
No.
I'm not a beat 'em up person anyway. And there's obviously another beat 'em up on this list we'll talk about.
But like, and especially in a year where Streets of Rage 4 comes out and is fucking killer, just oh my goodness. It's really stark when you compare something like Super Punch Patrol to it, because it just has all the trappings of the things I hate about the genre, which is clunky controls, getting stuck in corners and not being able to defend yourself properly, just like damage stacking, not being like long levels with bad checkpointing and really limited lives. Even on like the easiest difficulty, it was like a little bit of a stretch sometimes. And yeah, just like a frail character that can't really block or dodge easily or take a hit.
Yeah, there's no blocking. It's just a bit of a dodge, but
the art style's great though. It runs really smoothly and has the patented sketchbook aesthetic that we love from Gunman Clive, but that's really the only good thing about it. I do like the kind of skateboard level. That was neat, where you're like on an automatic board and like fighting guys on motorcycles. That's a neat idea, like freshens it up a bit, but I would need a whole lot more of that to make any sort of impact, and unfortunately it's a bummer, but Super Punch Patrol doesn't make it.
And also, when an easy mode is just more lives, I always feel a bit duped. Like, I kind of want it to actually be a bit easier.
Yeah, totally. Right. Like, you still take the same amount of damage, you still have the same enemies to fight, it's still the same difficulty, it's just...
You can still game over pretty easily on easy.
You do. Yeah, you do. I think even it's the easiest mode's called like tutorial mode or some shit, so...
Yeah, it's like, come on. Give me a break here.
Come on, Bertel, my man. I look forward to his next game. Hopefully he has a longer development cycle on the next one, and it's It's something bigger and better. Okay. My turn now, right?
Yes.
I'm going to take off Ninjala, a game that I totally enjoyed. And I think one of the best things about it is how well it runs on Switch. It's like a real smooth 60 frames and looks way better than it has any right to. But it's basically like one arena and it's really simple. And like it doesn't really make sense in terms of when you're attacking people, like what direction are you supposed to put the D-pad in or your analog stick to like counter them. There's some really neat ideas in here. Like there is the bones of a great game. I think similar to Panzer Paladin in a way. It's like I can see how Ninjala could have been so good and it just falls so flat because after about a couple of hours of playing that one arena, I was like, there's nothing bringing me back to this game at all. And I wonder if there have been updates to it. Maybe I should go back to it because it's been a while now. But you know, it's the thing with free-to-play games sometimes they just come out and are a bit underbaked, especially when you're relying on microtransactions and trying to kind of get people to buy skins and that type of stuff. I fundamentally love its style, and yes, it's cribbing a bit from the elements of Splatoon that are like kind of similar to that, but I think it has its own identity in terms of the bubble mechanic, and there's just great ideas that don't get to be utilized fully just because I think the main mode kind of sucks and that's a bummer. Did you ever boot this up, Bally, or give Ninjala a try?
I never gave it a go. I'm not good at giving games like this a go, which is a more personal preference, nothing against Ninjala. I need to be better at just kind of like giving free things a go when they come out, because there was a little bit of hype around this night. I should have probably given it a whirl. Maybe give it a go now.
Cool. So that's Ninjala gone. Bally, your turn to take something off of the list.
Another kind of battle arena game that I think you like more than me, but I think you'll agree it doesn't make the list, is Spellbreak. Spellbreak's
really cool.
It is cool.
I wish I had stuck with it more. I guess the fact that I didn't play more of it probably speaks of it's not its quality necessarily, but it didn't have the hooks to keep me there, I guess. It has great ideas fundamentally as a battle royale. It's like, okay, spell slinging instead of guns and stuff fundamentally is such a neat idea, and the whole notion that you can string all these elements together and they work in tandem with one another, like using the fire and the wind to create like a fire tornado, melting the ice and then using electricity on the water that has melted from it. Like there are elements of the physicsy, puzzly Breath of the Wild stuff in the combat of this game, which I think is very neat, and I want more games to do that type of thing. But I don't know what it was. Maybe it's just like it was on Switch and then it was on PC and I was playing it on both and didn't know what to play it on, and then after we both kind of played a bit of it, I kind of dropped off. Yeah, I love the idea behind Spellbreak. I should probably go back to it, honestly, but yeah, I don't know why it just kind of dropped off. It's one of those things that it didn't hold my attention enough.
Yeah, I find all these games have like a learning curve, and it's just some of them, their learning curves are much better than others. Like I don't think the learning curve in this game is particularly bad. It's fine. It's just,
yeah,
even as small as it is, it's still like, is this game good enough for me to warrant like learning it and then actually getting half decent at this game? Because I just find that after a game like something like Apex Legends, which was a very stressful process to even get moderately bad at, like
I love how your ceiling is moderately bad.
That is where I probably am.
That's where we both
Apex
are,
Legends.
let's be honest.
But yeah, so I always think...
Also, we beat Apex Legends, everyone. We beat it, okay? We did a duos and we won,
exactly.
So we never have to play it again.
And I just think, should I learn this game, or would I have more fun going and playing more Splatoon 2 or maybe Overwatch, that's where it's like smaller arena based. I think I'm just generally better at that style of game.
It's really hard for one of these to break into a rotation of like, if you are locked into your Rainbow Six Siege or like whatever kind of service game that you play, something like Spellbreak, it will take a lot for it to kind of punch through that noise.
And like if I was making a game that had to, be moderately successful and, pay my bills, I would never make a battle royale. Like it's such an insanely competitive market, and you're relying so much on a decent number of people sticking with the same game for a prolonged period of time that it just seems mad.
What I will say is that, especially on Switch, there is a dearth of free-to-play games like this, and so you have a much bigger chance of making noise just because there are a lot of kids, and I know this from working at a place where there were a lot of kids around, who own Switches, who, their parents aren't going to let them buy every Zelda game or every Mario game that comes out, right?
So they just go after the free stuff.
So they just play Fortnite, and then when they get bored of Fortnite, they go on the eShop and try and find whatever else is free, right? And so I think we misunderestimate how big of the audience is that, of people who don't want to pay money for games that much. And I think, the phone market has kind of trained people to not pay for games. So if you're coming to Switch and you're like playing Fortnite, you're going to be like going to the eShop, you're like, I don't want to pay 20 quid for this video game, I want a free thing. You find Spellbreak, and hey, maybe that does you for a few months. So I totally see how a game like this can be successful, especially on Switch, where it's a bit less crowded in terms of the free-to-play market.
Yeah.
But that said, it's not going to punch through the noise for us, when we're playing these other things. So unfortunate, but I do still like it. Okay, let's see. This is getting a bit tricky now. I am going to cut Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2. I like it. I think it's a good video game. Unfortunately, there are lots of great video games on this list, and I don't think a good video game will hang. It kind of just does more of the same, if not maybe a little bit worse to some degree than the first game. I think Curse of the Moon is a bit more of a bona fide classic. Like, the level design feels memorable, the kind of just the pacing of it's a lot shorter of a game. I think that first game actually stands alongside some of those classic Castlevanias in terms of quality. And this one, it just feels like they kind of went a bit overboard in terms of, all right, now we're going to have a character who's a sniper and he has barely any health, but he can snipe from across the screen. And we're going to have this lady with a spear, and she can like bounce on people, but also her health is not great. And then the guy with all the health is going to be a really slow moving mech with a corgi inside it. And so like your only vanilla character really is Zangetsu, who just has a sword, and he's basically who I played as most of the game just because he's the most balanced. I wish Miriam was in this game because it just feels wrong having a Castlevania game without someone with a whip, Like that's what these games are. You need a whip. So that was the thing that kind of was a little bit of a bummer about it, but it's totally serviceable, right? If you like this style of 8-bit side-scroller, and I always am up for another one of those, We got stuff coming out next year that I'm looking forward to. Cyber Shadow is one of those. You kind of got to do a bit more these days. I think the competition and stuff that has been done in the field is very high quality at this point, right? Like, you're competing with the likes of Katana Zero, or even Shovel Knight, or all these games. So doing a retro revival, I think at this point in time means you have to do a bit more. And Bloodstained is just more of the same. So it's good, but again, it's just iterative. So
okay.
So yeah.
MZ, how do you feel about DLC?
I like DLC. It's good.
I like a bit of DLC.
Yeah, it's all right.
Can we drop the DLC?
I'm more willing to drop Cindered.
I'm talking about Fire Emblem DLC and Xenoblade Future Connected.
So Xenoblade, I'm not willing to drop yet. Fire Emblem,
okay.
I am willing to drop Fire Emblem. It's good. I think part of
this feels like a million years ago.
I cannot fucking believe this came out this year is where I am with Cindered Shadows. I'm like, did I play Fire Emblem Three Houses this year? Apparently I did. I don't remember doing it, but I did. What I will say for Cindered Shadows is it is quite brief, but it does feature some of the best level design and tricky challenges in Three Houses, because Three Houses is kind of an easy game. It doesn't really put up much of a fight, especially if your characters are all leveled properly and all that type of stuff. And it introduces some new classes, which is nice. Having those 4 kind of sewer rat children who just live under the fucking church for some reason that no one knew about. The 4th house, the Ashen Wolves, who just no one, they're just there apparently. So one day there's a bit of a break in the wall and whoops, there's an entire society living underground.
You gotta incorporate DLC to any story plot you've started, don't you?
I mean, you know what? Fire Emblem is fully anime at this point, so it shouldn't really raise my eyebrow, but it still does. Go figure. I like the design of all those characters. They were like, let's make the most pretty fucking characters we can, and they did. And they're all pretty good. Darkflyer returns, which is nice. And yeah, we got some good stuff going on there, but I don't remember a lot of it. I just remember it was pretty decent, and I need to recruit those new DLC characters. I think that bummed me out the most about it, honestly, was not having support conversations for that DLC, all the support conversations with the new characters and the old characters, I don't think they exist unless you put the new characters into the old game. Which, what I mean is, like, if you start a new Blue Lions playthrough, you can recruit all of the Ashen Wolves characters, and then they will have support conversations with whoever you have on your squad, basically.
Right. But not within the DLC itself.
Not within the DLC itself, which I was like, really? Come on, man. That's because, honestly, the best thing about Fire Emblem Three Houses is the support conversations. They're the best support conversations in the entire franchise by far. That's the thing that game exceeds at, is like the characters are definitely the best aspect. So it's a bit of a bummer that wasn't in there, but yeah, I intend at some point to return to Three Houses and finish those last two playthroughs. Don't know when it'll be, but I will. I'm sure I'll get familiar with these Ashen Wolves again, even though I don't remember much of them. But yes, golf clap for the DLC. Cinder Chatters, well done. You made it this far. Okay, is it my turn to cut now?
Yes.
Ooh, this is getting tricky. This is definitely getting tricky now.
It's that point where you've played more than me.
Yeah. I am going to move to cut, and I know you won't like this. I'm going to move to cut The Last Campfire.
I knew it was potentially coming, and out of the games in and around it, I was kind of just about to say I think it's probably bottom of my personal list for the games around it.
Yeah.
It does a couple of things nicely and doesn't really do much more than that. Like that doesn't innovate, I should say.
No, not at all. It's very by the numbers.
Yeah, and I had a good time with it. It's really cute. It's
just like Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. Charming. It's a good video game, right?
But there's also a lot of innovation on this list.
Totally.
We do like to reward innovation and improving on things. And, you know, there's a lot of kind of Wind Waker, Twilight Princess-esque design to these puzzles. And
I was kind of done with the fucking snake puzzles by the end. I was like, all right, I've done enough.
Yeah, there was a lot of snake puzzles at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy for it
also,
to go.
That woman's voice is like the weirdest thing, and I still can't get over it. I still cannot get... I fucking put that into the podcast, the audio of the woman talking, just because I was like, people need to hear this shit.
People need to know.
Yeah, people need to know. God. If there was a category for like wildest voice acting at the Game Awards, The Last Campfire better fucking win it. Yeah. Oh my God. It's a bummer. I think it's a totally serviceable video game. It's like a Zelda type thing, and it's got some nice puzzles, but there's nothing about it like just jumps out to me. You know,
it's like a solid 7.
Yeah, totally.
Where I think there's so many 8s that come out these days that it's like I play 7s when they're my personal preference, and like
totally
Zelda
this is our personal
puzzle
preference.
Games are my personal preference. But
yeah, cool. All right, how many games do we have left here? What are we kind of getting down to?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
12. So technically 2 cuts need to be made here.
I think we should do 2 cuts before we start pushing stuff up. I think we're almost there. We might as well just pull on through.
Whose turn is it? Is it your turn?
Me.
It's your turn.
You dropped Last Campfire.
I did drop Last Campfire, yeah.
I think we should drop Bug Fables.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go next.
This is good. We're working each other out. We got this.
In technicalities, it doesn't even qualify for this list because it only came out on Switch this year, but the reason I wanted to put it here is because I'd literally never heard of it until this year, and I think a lot of people found that the case, that the Switch port was the thing that gave it life, because it did come out very quietly, I guess, last year, and no one was talking about it. I guess I'm not in Paper Mario Circle, so I wouldn't know about it anyway. But yes, it did release on PC last year, so technically it breaks our rules, but I thought we would make an exception just because it was just so unknown by most people. But I like Bug Fables. Maybe people will crucify me. I like Origami King more than Bug Fables, though. And I think that speaks to... I like the Paper Mario RPG style of video game. I don't think, I'm married to it in the same way that, people like Arlo are, or, other people who just love combat system or whatever about that game.
Yeah, it's more about mechanics. The reason you like Origami King, right? It's about the world and the storytelling.
Yeah, it's totally about like the atmosphere and the just surprise and delight and the beauty. It's such a gorgeous game, right? Like
you said it was like the Luigi's Mansion 3
yes,
this year in some ways.
Totally.
And that was our game of the year last year, so
yeah, for
that
sure.
Makes sense.
Bug Fables like can't do that stuff because it doesn't have the budget of a Nintendo behind it, right? Like it can only work with what it works with, and what it has is a bunch of great writing and really fun characters and an interesting world and kind of history that I didn't really dig into, to be honest with you, because I didn't find the side quests that thrilling. But it is a really neat and kind of like condensed adventure. It's like 15 to 20 hours for an RPG like this, which I think is probably music to someone like your ears, Bally, because, you know, there's so many RPGs that happen that you're like, well, I'm going to commit 30 plus hours to this, and there's no other way around it. So I do like that kind of new idea of games not having to be super long if they are RPGs. So Bug Fables gets a tick of the box for that. And I think as a combat system, it's definitely more complex and more interesting than a lot of the Paper Mario games. Like, it adds layers to them that make it a bit more engaging and in a lot of senses a lot more tricky. Even on normal, I was finding it quite a challenge, and by the end I definitely had to kind of go and get all the items I needed and equip the proper badges to make sure I was able to take less damage and do more damage and those types of things.
Were you surprised this game didn't really make more waves?
I don't know. I think it made the waves where it was supposed to make them, you know? And I think that maybe speaks...
Right. It doesn't kind of like... I don't think it made it, for example, into the Family Game of the Year, did it? Nominations?
No. Well, the thing is, it wouldn't be... It's just not eligible for any of those awards. I guess it is because Among Us was eligible for those awards, but yeah, I don't know.
It's a family game. Why isn't it eligible?
What I'm saying is, like, traditionally with the Game Awards, it's only if it released that year, because Bug Fables technically came out last year.
Oh, sorry, I'm talking about Paper Mario.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm not talking about Paper Mario. I'm talking about Bug Fables.
Got you.
Yeah, Bug Fables wouldn't have been eligible, but what I'm saying is Among Us was eligible, so why wouldn't it be eligible, I guess? Yeah. If enough people had played it on Switch this year of the media and had been caring about it, then it probably would have made some waves. But I think it kind of speaks maybe to a bit of a bias in the games press, that like not a lot of people care about Paper Mario to some degree, that nobody really talked about it or played it this year outside of fan circles of people who care about Paper Mario, you know? So I think it made the waves where it was supposed to, which is in those fan communities, and then outside of that, not really, I guess. But this Bug Fables will absolutely be someone's game of the year out there, right? I think actually we just read a list in the last segment where it was someone's game of the year, right? So I totally understand the nostalgia factor for people and the type of video game it is for them. But yeah, I totally enjoyed it. It's a great game. It's really fun. And, you know, I would recommend you try it at some point, Bally. It's got some neat puzzles in there as well. Some nice overworld stuff. So yeah, but again, there's a lot of good stuff on here that I like more than it, unfortunately. So here we are. Okay. We're down to 11 games. And I have to cut now, which is very tricky. And I'm going to have a hard time here. And I think it's either going to be Bloodroot or it's going to be Xenoblade. And technically Xenoblade is not a game. It's an epilogue to a definitive edition of a game. But it is new content this year, and I did really enjoy it. Melly is a great character. You get more expansion of her story. There is a character from the original Xenoblade who turns up in this, and you get a lot more development of that relationship that wasn't given the breathing room in original Xenoblade. And I think Melly is one of those characters who deserved a bit more spotlight. Like, hers is one of those stories that doesn't resolve nicely by the end. You just kind of feel bad for her because she doesn't really get anything, and like everyone in her life dies, and it's like kind of a bummer for Melia, man.
She's just there to do the magic.
She's just there to do the magic and then be like second fiddle to Shulk, and then like his real girlfriend is there, and then she's like, oh no, I guess not anymore.
Too much limelight on those anime sword boys.
Yeah, those anime sword boys. but look, she's an anime sword, not sword, staff
She's the
lady.
Anime magic girl.
She's anime magic
That's
girl.
also another trope.
Totally. But she's a very good anime magic girl. That's the thing. Xenoblade 1 is like barely anime, man. Like, of course it is to some degree, but like, look at Xenoblade 2 in comparison. Like,
Yes.
that game is way more anime.
I'd say the plot of Xenoblade is quite anime.
Yeah, sure, totally. Bloodroots, I think, is a really great one of those types of games, by which I mean like a Hotline Miami or a Katana Zero, or these kind of one-hit kill games where you go down super fast, enemies go down super fast, and it's about just nailing the perfect run through the level of like, okay.
See, that speaks to me as like your kind of game, where it's so much about the movement, the action, the actual gameplay.
Totally.
Sounded like you were quite hot on that. I was waiting for that game all year to come to Game Pass, and it never did.
I know. I wish you'd been able to play it, because I think we would have been able to have a better conversation about it and whether it qualifies here. I just haven't thought about it a lot since I played it, but I do remember it.
It was very early in the year as well.
It was a long... Like, I fucking forgot I played Cindered Shadows, and I had a great time with that, so who fucking knows at this point? 2020 is a mess. I do remember really enjoying Bloodroots. It did have some issues on Switch with the frame rate. Like, there was that one section where it was literally unplayable. Thankfully, they had like an invincible mode where I could kind of skip through it. But I was like, Jesus, this memory leak is kind of ruining my experience. But I think the fun thing about it is like you just pick up all this random shit and use it as weapons, and then you have these custom animations for the weapons, which is a lot of fun as well. So you always have that kind of second objective almost. It's like an unsaid objective of like, when you beat the last enemy, it will always do that custom thing. So you always want to kill the last enemy with a weapon that you've never killed them with before.
To see all the animations.
Just to see all the animations. It's the same. I'm playing Yakuza Kiwami at the moment, and that game has the same thing of like, you pick up a bicycle off the street, and I'm like, well, I got to use the special move with the bicycle because this is going to look stupid. I picked up a kettle the other day on the street, and the special move with the kettle is Kiryu just comes and pours hot water on the dude's face. It's so good. Anyway, more about Yakuza probably next year when I finish that game. But I love that idea. I just love the idea of, having that additional kind of mechanic that is totally a self-inflicted thing, where I'm like, I gotta see all the animations, man. It's just too fun. So I think I would like to reward Bloodroots for being a great game that I did have a great time with. And Xenoblade, I probably honestly, personally, I like Xenoblade more just because I love Xenoblade. Go figure. Like, Xenoblade Definitive is still probably my favorite thing I played this year, in all honesty. But I can't just give that every award, it's boring. So I will acquiesce to your request, Bally, and I'll drop Xenoblade. Man, Melia's good. I like Melia. Who doesn't? You're mean if you don't like Melia, man. Also, like, we got to see the Bionis arm, which is a whole area that got cut from the main game. I was excited about that. That was very exciting. Cool stuff. Good story moments. Great combat. Really good. But I think Bloodroots just makes it. So we have 10, Bally. Do you want to read through the 10 games that we have selected?
They are in no particular order. Kentucky Route Zero, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Animal Crossing, New Horizons, Streets of Rage 4, Carrion, Spiritfarer, Hades, Carto, Bloodroots, Paper Mario, Origami King.
Very, very good. Cool. So at this point, I think it would be a good idea to lock some games for the top 5, and then we can kind of figure out where we go from there. What do you think?
I'd be up for locking some games in top 5. I personally would lock 2 games in the top 5, and then I think the rest is up for grabs, is a strong word, but I think the rest is worth a discussion.
Okay, I think there are 3 locks for the top 5 personally, but let's go through it and see how we do.
I think this is where we're going to disagree. I think I know the third game you're talking about.
Okay, all right.
So my locks would obviously be Hades and Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Yes, Animal Crossing is also a lock for me at the top 5, by far.
That's where I disagree.
Are you fucking kidding me, Bally? Are you fucking kidding me? Animal Crossing New Horizons is a lock for the top 5. It's a lock. I'm not budging from this. It's a fucking lock. I did not think this would be the hill I would die on, but it's a fucking lock.
Well, let's put Hades and Ori up there for now, and let's have a discussion.
Let's put Animal Crossing there for now. It's not hurting anybody.
Okay, we can put it
there. It's
there
not hurting anybody,
We can put it there for
It's
now.
totally like not hurting anybody. I did not think this was the hill I was going to fucking die on. Jesus, okay. Oh boy. Oh.
If you want to put Animal Crossing up there for now,
Yes, I do.
I would
strongly.
like to request Spiritfarer up there for now.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm there with you. I'm
Okay.
Spiritfarer. Let's lock
do
it
that.
in top 5. I agree. Totally agree with that. That is not controversial to me.
I think we should try and look for number 10 now.
Okay, so a few number 10 options here.
So it's between Kentucky Route Zero, Streets of Rage 4, Carrion, Carto, Blood Roots, Paper Mario, Origami King.
Yes. Talk to me about Carto Bally, because I know this is the secret gem of yours that you're going to try and pump up the list as much as possible. I can't shake the fact that I played Carto for about 20 minutes and just bounced the fuck off of it. So you're going to have to do a lot of work here to get it high up the list for me. Because honestly, like, that mechanic seemed neat, and then I got frustrated about 20 minutes in, and I was like, do I want to walk around slowly? No, I don't. Do I really care about these puzzles? Not really.
I think the speed of the walking is a fairly harsh criticism, but you're
not for me.
entitled to
Not
that,
not for me, man. Look, the way I play Hades, the way I play Ori, just I go at 100 miles an hour, mate.
It's
okay.
based on movement, but okay.
Yeah.
I think Carto has a very cool mechanic. At times, that mechanic is incredibly brutal and tough and obtuse. And I did have to look up 2 to 3 times online to work out what the hell do I do next.
Yeah.
The times where I didn't look it up online and really thought about it, and it's another one of those puzzle games that is very on my level, like very much gelled with what I like in a puzzle game. I do think certain moments were just jaw-dropping, like, I am so chuffed with myself, I can't believe I worked that out, sort of thing. So,
okay. Are you telling me that, like, it adds new mechanics, or is it layering stuff on top of the existing stuff?
I'd say it's more layering than adding new, or using the existing mechanic in different ways.
Could you give me an example of, like, a puzzle that blew you away or something? And, you know, people can skip it, they don't want spoilers for puzzles, but I just want to hear something cool from this game to give a good idea.
So this one girl is like, I really want to eat, like, bird for dinner.
Okay.
I think she might have even said, like, I can't remember what type of bird. Anyway, and I'm like, she wants to eat a bird for dinner, so obviously I have to get her a bird somehow. And then I realized there was, like, a bird flying over us, and it flies from the left of the screen to the right of the screen, on and off. And I'm thinking, right, what power do I have to make this bird flying across the screen dead and give it to this girl to eat?
Find a gun,
like,
Bally. That's what you do. Find a gun and shoot out the sky.
Well, this isn't the sort of game where you carry any guns or spears or bow and arrow. There's nothing I can do to get that bird out the sky.
Also, you're like a 5-year-old girl. So.
I'm like a 5-year-old girl who has the power to change Earth by moving it around like a jigsaw piece. So I'm thinking, what do I do to get this bird into that girl's hands? So there is also a volcanic steam smoke coming up from the ground, and the bird flies over the smoke and it goes off the screen. And I'm thinking, right, so if it's flying over the smoke and not dying, then what else can I do? Like, there's no way I can get the smoke to affect that bird more than it already is. But then I thought, of course, there is a way of doing that. And what you do is, by the time the bird flies just past the smoke, you rotate the tile so it flies back over the smoke again. And you do that 3 or 4 times, and then it gets burned, falls out of the sky.
Wow.
You pick it up and you give it to the girl. It's like,
wow.
That's great puzzle design in my view. And it's using an existing mechanic of rotating the tile, which we're doing for the rest of the game, mainly to make paths for Carto and make squares appear. But this is a way of using that same mechanic in a different way to do something different. And that's done a few times in the game. Maybe not quite enough as I would have liked. And the strongest aspect of the game is the desert section, where you're doing puzzles like that more frequently than the rest of the game. And I would say the end of the game is particularly brutal because they make much larger puzzle pieces with different bits that fit together, and it's a bit trickier.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm afraid of. It's like that kind of density by the end.
But the density is only there at the end. I don't think it's overly long. I don't think it's overly difficult at the end. There's one that I had to look up. But I love the new mechanic. I think the world is really charming. I think it's some nice writing in there. It's a very pleasant game in that sense, with a few brutally hard mechanics in there. I'd be pretty keen that it at least wasn't 10th. Like I'm not going to push for this up the list, but I certainly don't want it like 10th.
No, that's really clever. Like I do really appreciate that idea of, I guess because the world automatically freezes when you go to the map menu, that bird is gonna be stuck, and then when you flip it, it has to like time re-engages itself essentially.
Exactly,
time kind of like freezes. That's clever. That's very cool. In that case, should we talk about Kentucky Route Zero? Because I think this might be a nice number 10. And I think for me, it is one of those games that when I think about it, I do have a profound respect for what it does, more than I like it as a video game, if you know what I mean, right? Like it's some of its ideas and its political kind of ideology, and a lot of what it set in the way, it kind of like lands very appropriately in 2020. Even like it came out early in the year before 2020 was a fucking nightmare, but like it rings even truer now. Just the state of like healthcare in that game versus like what the fuck is happening in America right now, even here, you know. It's a tremendously powerful game in terms of its ideas and its themes, and I don't remember anything about it. I mean, it's not a plot driven game at all, that's not the point of it, but it has some really special moments and some really like cool visuals. Like I think of the Junebug scene where she's singing and it opens up the sky of the bar,
very cool,
and then it comes back down. I think of the interlude where you're sitting first person watching a play, or you're in the play and you can see the audience behind you. Like I think that interlude is probably the strongest part of Kentucky Route Zero as a whole. It's just tremendously well done. Like the writing and everything surrounding it is just very incisive.
Yeah, I agree with your points. Like, this game is almost engaging with lots of themes, in some ways on a level beyond what I can fully comprehend. Like,
totally.
Not everything is just like, this is the message. And obviously, you played a game like Night in the Woods this year, and we talked about how that game's a lot more obvious about some of the messages it's making, while still being subtle often.
Totally, yeah.
But I think there's subtlety, and then there's messaging.
There's like a theory. There's an ethereal kind
messaging.
Of like literary quality to Kentucky Route Zero.
Yeah, and it's a much more in that category. I agree of like I respect it more than I personally enjoyed it. At points, it was a real slog, or I didn't know how to progress I wouldn't even call it a story. I just progressed the game. I found aspects tough, and maybe playing 5 chapters back to back was quite a lot for this year, because obviously this year just chapter 5 came out and others had started playing this, I believe, in like 2013, was it, or something? So
yeah it's been a while.
It didn't fully click with me, but I respect a lot of the messages and moments when they did click. Like most of it didn't click, some of it did, and the bits that did click were very impressive. There's some cool stuff in there. So yeah, I'm feeling it for number 10 personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good symbolic number 10. We both played it and we both took a lot from it. But I think when we're talking about our sensibilities as video game players, it doesn't really hit what we're looking for necessarily. But I think it deserves to be on this top 10 just because it's just really bold with what it does. And as well, like I do think it has some really surprising moments, you know, like when you finally get onto the Route Zero and it's this weird wireframe like idea, and even when you're like going on the boat, and the way that they visualize a lot of this stuff is super clever, and very, very good. So yeah, I agree. Number 10. I think number 9 is an interesting one. I think it's probably, we're getting to the point of like Bloodroots and Kato here for me, where both these games, only one of us really played it. And I think we need to decide, do I like Bloodroots more than you like Kato, and how we land on that.
I like Kato for its innovation. It's got a couple of failings of being too tough in points, but overall I had a very good time with it. I look back very fondly. I don't know what more to say than that. I like it quite a bit. I can't tell whether I like it more than you like Bloodroots.
Yeah, I like Bloodroots a good amount, but I think I'm probably less effusive about it than you are about Kato. I do think you probably like Kato more than I like Bloodroots, and maybe if you had played Bloodroots, then we could put it up higher, but we can't. So yeah, I think the thing with Bloodroots is it just executes on that idea really well, and I found it hard to put that game down. You know, I found it really compelling to play through level after level, and you know, just every scenario was really well made. I think it does fall down in some aspects, right? Like I do think some of the areas where you have to do jumping is not great because you don't have a consistent shadow and depth perception with a world like that, and the kind of way that it's designed, like the kind of art design doesn't lend too well to polygonal platforming, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Like because it's a kind of isometric view, that stuff falls a little flat, and those parts of the game are kind of the weakest element. But for the most part, it's just a thrill ride of just, and really good boss fights as well, actually, like well checkpointed and neat ideas. Yeah, it's really a game about repetition and learning and executing, and those are some of my favorite things in video games. So I do hold it up quite high for that. But again, I don't know. You seem to really like Kato, so I'm totally fine with having Bloodroots at number 9 and Kato at number 8. I think that's okay.
We can do that. Yeah, I think Kato works well at 8.
Okay, great.
Let's do that.
So we're gonna have 7 more games here, and this is where it's getting down to the cream of the crop. I think, like the best video games. And there are a lot of good ones here. I think that a good number 7, would be Paper Mario: The Origami King, which is kind of there already. We already have it there. What I will say about it is brilliant writing, very funny, absolutely gorgeous, just beautiful. The autumn environment, the river, when you go down the river, you know, the desert has a real purpley hue to it that's pretty nice. And I think, like, maybe by the back half it goes on a little long. And the combat, again, is one of those things where, like, you know, I wish they'd put a bit more effort and time into, like, making progression matter here, because ultimately you don't really need to do the combat at all. Even though...
Because everything else sounds so crisp and well done,
like,
you know?
If they nailed that RPG stuff, then... this would be one of the games of the year, Bally. Like, I guarantee you, I would be fighting hard for this, because the rest of it is just so good. And I like that Luigi's Mansion 3 comparison sounds insane, but it really has the soul of that game in terms of environment. Finding all the little toads in the environment is like finding all the money sacks in Luigi's Mansion, or, you know, just little jokes
just
everywhere.
Feeling very fresh. It reinvents itself a bit.
References. And, like, here's the problem. I think I watched Arlo's, like, hour-and-a-half review of Paper Mario and the Origami King, where he kind of...
turned into Joseph Anderson.
Yeah, a little bit. He's getting there. He tears it a new one in some senses, but, like, he brings up a point which I talked about on this show as well, is there are fights in this game where it's an action game, and you're on a ship and you're fighting a giant squid blooper thing, and you're running around as Mario. You're hitting things in real time with your hammer. It feels really cool, and you're jumping over, you know, waves that are coming towards you. It's like, what if they put all of the work into making an actual action game and didn't just feel beholden to having turn-based battles when you're not even making an RPG anymore, guys? Like, to me, the game itself has a combat system already in it that is way more appealing to me and way more exciting. There's a particular fight in the desert that's like almost Shadow of the Colossus levels of that type of stuff, and I was like, this fucking rules.
Is the full extension of a more action style of that game something like Luigi's Mansion, where it does have like a fairly unique fighting system?
Yeah, I mean, totally, right? Like, this is definitely like a cousin to Luigi's Mansion in some senses, and we're getting ever closer towards that being the case. And so I wish that they had put a bit more care into the movement mechanics and, like, upgrades with Mario and, like, different items or weapons that he can wield. If you put your effort into that, and that is the focus of the next Paper Mario game, I think you can have something that is distinct and special in its own right. But as it stands, like, it's not that I hate the battle system, it's just that it gets in the way, and it gets in the way too much for me to wholeheartedly make this recommendation to anyone, because I can't do it. Even, like, young kids will struggle, because I fucking struggled with some of these puzzles and ring things and flipping them in the right direction. it gets to a point where it's just so I don't want to do it anymore. And like the boss fights are well done. They're probably the best fights in the game, but even those have like their gimmicks to them, and you have to do a specific thing in order to do any damage whatsoever, which is one of those elements that Sticker Star was kind of pulled up for as being annoying. Yeah, and I guess the other thing is like all the fucking characters are toads, and it's like, oh, come on, guys. Like the rest of this world is so vibrant and different and out there that like, can we just get some weird different characters for once? Like even if they are like the original Super Mario, Paper Mario games that are like character named Boos, or like people who are Mario enemies but like have their own defined personalities. So yeah, Paper Mario the Origami King. It's kind of at this barrier where I don't think it can go above number 7 for me, but there's so much about it to love. Oh, it's really frustrating, but it's great.
Okay, this is where it's going to be tricky.
Okay.
We're going to have some disagreements, but
okay.
I do like all these games.
Yes.
I just like some more than others. I don't have huge numbers of flaws with many of these games.
Yeah, totally.
My preference for number 6, are we on now?
Yes, number 6.
My preference for number 6, and when I say preference, I should say this is like what I think I can get away with.
Okay.
Not necessarily my actual number 6.
Uh-huh.
Probably Streets of Rage 4.
I knew you were going to say it. And it hurts me because, Bally, Streets of Rage 4 is in my top 10 games of this year. This game blew me the fuck away, and I think it gets extra credit because it's a genre I hate. I actively despise beat-em-ups. They are by far my least favorite traditional video game genre, and I didn't think I would ever love one, but I fucking love Streets of Rage 4. And granted, I played it a while ago, and it was only like 3 or 4 hours long, but it has stuck with me this whole year. How fucking gorgeous that game is. It is masterfully crafted. It, like, the animation is impeccable. It just feels so good. Cast your mind back, Bally, to playing this game, picking up a pipe, throwing it at an enemy, and catching that pipe again. How fucking good did that feel? Because it felt fucking good to me.
Felt good.
I adore this game. I think it is tremendously made, and I think the very fact that it is a genre that neither of us like, and like, I think it is amazing. I really do. And that is to say that I think Carrion should be below it. As much as I enjoyed Carrion, like it's really good, but it's like Carrion is in one of those genres that I adore, and yet it doesn't quite live up to the best of that, versus Streets of Rage 4, where like I am predisposed to hate it, but I love it instead. And that's kind of where my head is at in terms of Carrion is a great game. It's really cool, and I like a lot of its ideas, but it kind of just does the same thing for a while, and then it's done. And I will also bring up like moving people around in Carrion, some of the worst feeling stuff. And it's so ironic that like Carrion is one of the best feeling video games of the year, but then you have the human stuff where I'm like, who the fuck programmed this, right? It's a bit of a mismatch in some sense.
Yeah, I mean, Streets of Rage 4 and Carrion, probably neither will make my top 10. If one does, it will be Carrion, and it will probably be number 10.
Lower, yeah, totally.
So I think that also kind of speaks to like, I think there's a lot of very strong non-Nintendo games this year that have kind of skewed that a little bit. But yeah, I think from what you've said, I don't feel strongly enough about it. Like I do.
Yeah,
think,
no, I don't think you have my Streets of Rage 4 passion for Carrion.
Yeah, I can't be like, Carrion's one of my games of the year and it needs to be in this. I really like. So what I like about Carrion is that it, for someone who knows almost nothing about horror films, but from what I do know, like, you playing as the Beast is done incredibly well. Now, I've not played a game like, I don't know, Alien Isolation. I know that you're not playing as the Beast or anything, but if you were, and that game was in 2D, I feel like it would be a lot like Carrion, where there are shadows, there are save points, and it's about how do I execute my mission of killing that person before they spot me and shoot me with like some crazy flamethrower sort of thing, like you would imagine in some action horror film, you know. And I think being able to recreate that is done incredibly well. As a Metroidvania, I think it's fine, but I think its strength is recreating that sort of impressive stalking around and killing scientists without the other scientists finding out and reacting. Like, there are moments where you do have to kind of go guns a-blazing, and you are kind of, and it's like that moment in some film where the beast comes out and keeps getting shot, and it's like, this is cool. Like, this is very, very cool.
It's a really neat mechanic of like you growing smaller as that happens, and therefore having to like, I think maybe it was maybe a game design thing, but like I did appreciate that a lot of the respawn areas were quite close to some places, and you move around so quickly that I was always like, all right, I'll take out, because I think deaths were permanent in the game. If you killed a bunch of people in the room and then left the room, when you came back they were still dead, right? So you could go back, heal yourself up, and then come back again, which for me is just a nice thing, like progress wise, to make it so you didn't have to clear out the whole room in one, right?
No. And I think like the puzzle stuff with the sizes is done neatly. That's kind of something I feel like I've seen somewhere before, but the more unique thing I think is the movement combined with the monster horror aspect, which I think is done very well. Just want to shout out Carrion, which I guess is now our number 6.
Yeah, I think it deserves to be. It's a really well-made game.
And it's one of the most surprising games of the... I mean, there's a lot of surprises above this game as well, but I think it's something that was completely off the radar. Turned up on Game Pass. We both gave it a go, had a great time, and it kind of worked its way up to number 6.
Yeah, I mean, maybe off the radar for you. I had followed Carrion for a while. Like, it got show at the PC Gaming Show last year.
Okay.
So I did keep my eye on it, but yeah, it's totally... It is a really great gem from this year, and often like a bunch of indie gems happen. They're often on our list, and you know, Carrion deserves a spot for sure. But it's not. It didn't bowl me over in the same way that Streets of Rage 4 did. So yes, I feel passionately about that game in a weird way, and it's great. It's really good. And I think, you know, Streets of Rage 4 at number 5, I'm happy with that. I'm not going to push for it any higher than that. I think our top 4 is like very fucking strong. So I don't think I need to get it any higher than that. It's totally...
I had a good time with Streets of Rage 4. Like, I'm almost on the same page as you with beat 'em ups. I almost couldn't care less for them. They're one of the lowest genres, if not the lowest. And I had a great time with Streets of Rage 4. Like, it's a very smooth feeling, visually pleasing.
It feels like a modern, like, and not only that, but like difficulty wise as well, you know?
Yeah, it worked well on easy, you know, like it wasn't like, right, this is gonna, and the checkpointing's much better, even though you do have to play the whole level again, but that's much better than playing the entire game again. And it's a very short game, and that works for this style of game. It's fun. The characters do feel like very distinct from each other. They're all fun to play as. And
Blaze Fielding, her fucking hair flick at the end of the level sends me it's like one of my favorite animations of the year. I love it.
And some really strong music, and it's just a very impressive package.
Total. And like, I mean, come on, throwing that fucking pipe at people and catching it again, maybe up there in like top moments of 2020 in video games for me. Like, so satisfying, it's unreal. Oh god. Oh, so good. Great. So we've got 4 games here.
Hades, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and Spiritfarer.
Yeah, it's pretty murderer's row, man. These are some of the best games of the year.
So you like all 4 of these games more than me. And what I mean by that is one of these games I haven't thought about since I played it. I admit I might have strategized badly with it, and that's Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Okay, what do you mean strategize badly with?
Okay, so I was ready to be completely enamored with Animal Crossing. I'd waited since more or less Wild World on DS. We dabbled in the Wii one. You obviously played New Leaf on 3DS. I had essentially about a 10-12 year break from Animal Crossing. I thought I was supercharged and ready to play this game most days in 2020 and have a great time. And I warned others at the start of the year when I started playing this game. I said, you see, there's those people who are going to play Animal Crossing for like 5 hours a day, and they're going to burn out before summer. It's the people who play about an hour a day, a half hour a day, 20 minutes a day, and they're going to still be there in winter. And I did the former. I played 4 or 5 hours, not 4 or 5 hours, but there were some days I played 4 or 5 hours, but there were days I was playing.
Well, I mean, in the first month at least, we were going ham on it, you know.
Between Animal Crossing coming out, what was the release date? I can't remember.
It was March, I believe it was end of March, the 30th or something like
30th
that.
30th of March. What day did Last of Us Part 2 come out?
June, I believe.
So I played Animal Crossing every single day from it coming out to Last of Us Part 2 coming out. I played it every single day. I didn't miss a single day. I went for stuff like the fish, the bugs. I was really into the collecting. I was having a great time. And that's why I do think it does deserve to be in and amongst this discussion. Although I will say, I don't think this game is making my personal top 10.
That is fucking wild to me.
And if I'd said that at the start of the year, I'd been like, what? And I don't know. I think I'm just way more on the side of the structured aspects of a game like Stardew Valley. I found myself getting it just became a chore more so than fun, not earlier than I thought it might. And maybe I should have given the other seasons more chance to reinvigorate me. I got into this really bad habit of collecting furniture without actually decorating my house. It was like this hoarding mentality. It was very strange. It's like, what are you doing? You need to...
And they made decorating so much easier in this game, so like you very well could have done.
They did, and I did do it a bit, and I had a good time, but all those good times dried up, and I look back fondly on those good times without having the urge to recreate those good times. And so I'm surprised that that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. That's a bummer, man. Let me have a counterpoint to you talking about how you were going to play this for every day of the year. That was never going to fucking happen because
I know.
We do a podcast, right?
I know. Totally.
That's the thing. Like, thinking about it realistically, it's a miracle that I played this game for 3 months. It's a miracle that I put 140 hours into this game. Because that's not how we play video games these days, right? Like, it was never going to happen for you. And I think you were unrealistic in thinking you were going to be playing your Switch Animal Crossing every day just because it was inevitable there was going to be another Switch game that came out that you would have loaded up, and you can't multitask on Switch, so you can't leave Animal Crossing running in the background.
True. Yeah. Although that other Switch game never really came.
If there's Switch 2 with like Series X capabilities of like multitasking,
that would be
then
good.
I think both of us would have put a lot more time into a game like this just because of the convenience
But
factor.
even the things I look at Animal Crossing and I get the most joy in, I think about checking in with characters, seeing how they're doing some chores, and just enjoying the world. And there's actually a game on this list that I did those things and enjoyed way more, which is Spiritfarer. And I think there's a lot of similarities. Not a ton, some.
Yeah, there's some.
But there's some progression stuff where I've just talked about how much I love Stardew Valley versus Animal Crossing. I think Spiritfarer is a really good example of taking some aspects from both games and kind of running with them. But that's just a game I gelled way more and is like 100% in my top 10. And
cool. Wow, this is the heel turn I did not expect. Bally's saying Animal Crossing is not going to be in your top 10 of the year.
But I do really feel this. I barely think about Animal Crossing, and every time I see stuff on Twitter and people saying the new season, let's get this fish, let's do the snowman, I'm just like, I have so little desire to do that. I'd rather replay Ori, you know, like and that's maybe because of how we've been programmed now with the podcast. I can't deny that, but yeah. That's my honest feelings, and for me, it's not making the personal top 10. I'm happy for it to be top 4 because obviously you're very keen on this game. I think you had a better 3 months with this game than I did.
I had a great 3 months with it. I think also, like, I know a lot of other people through my internet connections who were also playing the game. So, you know, I popped into Fizzy Stardust Town. Me and Nick did some trading here and there. You know, he bought a crown for 1,000,000 bells from my shop and then gave me one. You know, like, I did have a bit more of a community thing going on with it. I also loved watching Gary Whitta's Animal Talking Show while playing Animal Crossing. I think I gave myself reasonable projects, scoped them out, completed them, and was satisfied. And I think you gave yourself too much. You were like, I'm going to do this mega fucking thing on my entire island, and it's going to be this enormous thing. And you got like partway through it and then never finished it, right? Like,
I mean, I did the geographical part. I never did the decoration part, as it were. Yeah, and it just
totally, yeah. So I think that's another problem. Is like, I was like, let's have this small park over here. Took me a while to do, but I kitted it out. It looks great. Did my restaurant. It took a while to get my restaurant to go, but I'm so proud of that thing, and it looks amazing. And I just absolutely love just the end result of it. And sure, maybe I didn't come back for the autumn events. I recently did pick it up again the other day because it was my birthday, and I'm like, well, I've got to see my birthday in Animal Crossing, of course. And it's fun. The birthday. Did you do your birthday? Obviously, you were playing it still.
Yeah, I mean, my birthday luckily falls within like my peak interest in the game on May 14th.
Yeah,
so that helped. And I still look back fondly on what I did achieve with like those bridges and the rivers, and I like the look of my town. Like, maybe I will go back to it one day, but like the idea that I'm going to go back in and check in consistently and actually improve that town substantially, I can't see myself doing it. And
I don't think like you have to I don't think you have to do that for Animal Crossing to work, right? Like, I view my 3 months.
No, everyone plays it in a million different ways, totally.
Yeah, like, I play Streets of Rage 4 for like 3 hours. It's easily one of my favorite games of the year. I played Animal Crossing for 140, right? Like, I put significant time, and it was just, I think during that time in the pandemic, and I was back home in Edinburgh, and I was like doing job searching, and like, it was just this thing every morning. I would wake up, I would do like a couple of hours at Animal Crossing.
It's good for structure, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and it was just such a nice thing, and like, we'd be texting every fucking weekend about turnip prices with each other, just trying to be like,
that was a fun trip. I can't deny
it was great.
The turnip stock store.
We'd never done it before,
market.
really. Like, but back in Wild World, like, there wasn't a good way to do that on the internet. Just wasn't as developed.
Honestly, Wild World was a lot more about the graft of trading in your fruit, and this was just a really awesome way of bypassing so much of that, and it felt quite good to have a lot of money early.
I still have like 10 million bells in my bank, and I don't need them, like, I've got everything I want. But yeah, like, jumping back into it and doing making a snowman, and seeing how the world looks in snow. It's just such, I came back to it and I was instantly reminded of just how chill that game is. It's just it's like the total podcast game. If there's a podcast game of the year, it's Animal Crossing for me. Like, I just had a great time having it. And that's the way that I play games a lot of the time, is I have a video on YouTube on and I play a game at the same time. And Animal Crossing is like, it's fucking perfect pairing for that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the quality of life things, they really did improve from the last game. Not that I played the last game, but from people who loved the last game and love this game, it's clear there's a lot of quality life stuff that they could have improved. And I'm not saying that hindered my enjoyment necessarily. I think it would have, if all that stuff had been in there, like, to make everything completely smooth, maybe it would have made aspects of the game stickier for me to like come back to. But I wouldn't hold that massively against the game. Like, I think it's a very impressive package. It just didn't stick with me quite in the way I was maybe hoping or expecting.
Yeah, it's the other thing I should say is I always talk about how your first Animal Crossing is your favorite, and I think New Horizons breaks that rule. I think this is my favorite Animal Crossing. I think it is better than Wild World in every conceivable way.
I agree.
And I think the level of customization, the ability to have stuff outside, and look, hey, there are so many things this game could improve on, from the online to the just inventory management.
Oh my god, some of the online
to like going through, like, just talking to fucking people and being like the same dialogue every time you go to the museum with blah. That's like, look, I totally get it, but also when I'm in the mood of playing Animal Crossing, I'm not going to Joseph Anderson it, right? I'm not going to fucking get out a timer and see how long it loads fucking shrines in Breath of the Wild. That's just not the mode I'm going to get into with a game like this. And yeah, I totally hear all those criticisms. I still it was just a game to melt into, and I really had a great time. So, and
I did really enjoy, as you said, like the start of lockdown, basically the day this game came out. I was in like a new job, and it was like I agree with the structure thing. It was a nice structured thing to do every day for an hour or two, and to progress and to build and see it grow like a flower or a plant or something like that. It was a very satisfying process. But yeah, that process just didn't last as long as I thought. And
yeah, and the thing is, like, that's always going to happen, right?
Yeah.
There's never going to be a good end point for a game like Animal Crossing. It's, it's like what people say about art. Art is never finished, it is only abandoned. And Animal Crossing is also never finished, it is only abandoned.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally get it. Should we talk about Spiritfarer and decide if this is higher than Animal Crossing on this list? Because Spiritfarer is below Animal Crossing for me personally, but I totally get if you are more passionate about it and want to talk about it.
I absolutely love Spiritfarer. It was the character-filled Stardew Valley Harvest Moon-esque, but 2D with a bit of platforming in there experience I didn't know that I needed. I think...
Bit of Wind Waker on there on the side for good measure.
A bit of Wind Waker. I mean, it's just throwing together so many games I love, and it's delivering on those aspects. I think aspects of the game fade away a little bit nearing the end, but
yeah, it's a bit overlong, and I definitely think
a little
like
long.
It comes in waves. It's like, okay, I was really high and then I'm a bit less so, and then I'm really high on it and then a bit less so. Part of it is, I think, the progression of the kind of Metroidiness of, okay, I need to build up to get the icebreaker so I can finally get through the ice. And there are some parts where I was like confused about where to go, and one of the things was like I hadn't gone into someone's room who had left, and therefore I didn't get the kind of the thing to ping on my objectives to be go here. So I did spend like a good 2 hours going around being like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, which was, I wouldn't say it was frustrating necessarily, because it's the type of game where I'm kind of okay just going around the sea and collecting stuff and building materials, but it was a little bit like, okay, well, wish it was a bit more clear.
And I know people in the chat were kind of talking about the ending and wishing that it was maybe a little more clear or structured, and I think it was maybe a service in the chat made the point like, actually, if you think about who this character actually is or was in the real world, maybe that's why they didn't make it a clearer ending, because it is actually incredibly sad and emotional, and in many ways they do leave it a bit more open-ended and kind of less obtuse, which I think works for the game. And I'm not saying I necessarily wanted a big sad emotional ending, because there's a lot of sad emotional stuff in this game as it is.
I don't know if you've read the Discord today, but Tim in there posted apparently a bunch of the like who Stella is and who these people are is apparently in an art book and outside of the game, and I was like, okay, I mean, that makes a bit more sense now, like, given the context there.
Wait, a real life art book that you can go and
I believe there is like a Spiritfarer art book out there that you can buy that basically tells you all this stuff that is not really explained in the game about the story. Right.
So I mean, that's an interesting choice. I don't feel strongly necessarily one way or the other.
No, and I don't think you necessarily need to know for the game to work, right?
No, totally.
Because the game is more about the process of grieving and saying goodbye, right? Like it's a meditation on that. And I think some ways it does work. In some ways, I think there are certain characters where it doesn't. And that's maybe just because they were just intentionally, like Mickey and Bruce, intentionally abrasive characters that I didn't care for the entire game. And when they left, I was like, leave, goodbye, Get
off my boat.
Get off my ship. But like, I mean, some of the most gorgeous 2D animation. This list is just a murderer's row of gorgeous 2D animation, from Ori to Spiritfarer to Streets of Rage to even Paper Mario. What a year for art styles, man.
Yeah. I do think presentation-wise, the animation combined with a lot of the music and the writing is just so joyous beyond you even getting into any of the mechanics, which I think are maybe not the strongest aspect of the game, but the Stardew Valley parts where you are grinding, building things, processing, turning materials into more materials, selling those materials, using those materials. That's really strong, and that's probably stronger than the Wind Waker aspect.
It's such a hook that like I often forgot to set my ship to go somewhere, and I'd just be sitting at an island for like 2 days, and I was like, oh fuck, I need to set a course to go somewhere.
It can be a lot to think about, and it's that same part of your brain is Stardew Valley where you got this timed. And
I think that's part of one of the issues maybe is like it starts out and you don't have much to do, and then all of a sudden you got so much to do, and then it like levels out again and you have less to do. I think one of the things is like those materials end up becoming pointless past a certain mark in the game, where you're only using materials for specific story objectives and like improving your ship, and once that is done, you don't really need to care about those materials necessarily anymore.
There's some fairly high money goals that it's useful to have an abundance of materials for
to sell.
However, some materials become less valuable the more you process them.
Right.
So
exactly.
it's about knowing which ones decline in value and which ones improve. And
I wish there was some kind of like customization aspect to the game where materials that you weren't really using anymore you could still use in like changing the color of roofs or stuff like that, or customizing the outside of your ship, or those types of things would have been nice. Not that it needs anything to add on, because there is a lot there already. But
like all those good feels you've talked about, like Animal Crossing, I just loved more with this game and had such a great time. And especially like some of the areas like Japanese style, and others like this French style of like the ports and areas you're going to, and
the music when you get to shore. It's so good.
The music is so great. And like just very surprised it's this high, and like this game was cool from the trailer from 2019. I think the trailer was at Xbox's show. But like beyond one cool trailer, this game like far surpassed that, because I don't think that trailer really, I didn't have a good idea what the structure of the game was, and when it came out and people were like, oh yeah, this is like, you know, Stardew Valley, Wind Waker, but characters, 2D storytelling.
It wasn't really on my radar at all. Like I saw it and I was like, okay, that's a nice art style, and it didn't really, I don't know, it didn't really speak to me at the time. And then, you know, when it came out, I was like, okay, I'll give this a go. And as I said on the show, I was like 20 minutes in and I'm like, this is a Game of the Year contender instantly. Like I just knew it straight away. It makes a very strong first impression.
There's like a level of production with this game in that 2D animated art style that's just so high and impressive that I really took off.
Like literally the best animation I have ever seen in my life is Stella shearing a sheep. It's ridiculous. It is phenomenal. Oh my god.
And there's some good feeling 2D platforming in there as well, you know. Like
that's what I was going to say. Like, it has no right to feel as good as it does as a platformer, and that's maybe one of my misgivings with it. Is like, I kind of wish they gave you more complicated and interesting platforming to do.
There's some fairly complicated stuff by the end of the game. Like
like there's islands where, like with the one with all the townhouses where you have to get to the top, and there's
not a ton, but it's kind of like puzzly and skill based kind of combination.
Yeah, there's that island where you find Elena, who's like the secret character that I don't think you ever got, where it's really high up and it's doing a lot of like in the air using your sailcloth to kind of glide places and that type of thing. I just wish there was, and I know this is totally not the type of game it is, but like if this company makes another game that is more platforming focused and like takes the feel of what Spiritfarer has, you could have something really special. Because like there's a particular island where all the roofs are slated or slanted, and getting from one side to the other is just a complete joy, because you slide from one roof tile, do a double jump, slide to the next one, do a double jump, and it's just like the momentum carrying you forward across those roofs it feels great. So I mean, Spiritfarer rules. It's a fantastic game. So I totally get it. If you want it to be number 3, I totally get that.
I would be very keen for this game to be number 3.
Yeah,
sure.
I totally see it. Much as I love Animal Crossing, Spiritfarer is really good, and I think like it was one of those things where I think like surprises or things that you didn't expect, you know, because we all knew Animal Crossing was going to be good, right? It was a known quantity. When something like Spiritfarer happens, I always give it bonus points in something like Game of the Year, just because it just comes out of nowhere. It's like, wow. And
I think like some of the things I hoped for with Animal Crossing, with all the crafting and this sort of thing, I think that busy work is just something that Spiritfarer I think really delivers on. That sort of Stardew Valley busy work, and on top of that, I think it's a more elegant. It's done more elegantly in Spiritfarer than Animal Crossing in terms of like, I'm going to build this thing. That process feels better in Spiritfarer than Animal Crossing.
Yeah, I get you. And I also like the ability to just like, I wish it was easier in Stardew Valley to move my houses without worrying about where something else is first. And I think...
And this game makes it so easy.
Actually, I think Stardew does make it a bit more easy. Like, okay.
I mean, Animal Crossing does not.
Exactly. Maybe this is the final nail in Animal Crossing, is I was so fucking annoyed that I had this like 1 inch away from where my house should be compared to another one, and in order to do it, I would have to break down the entire fucking house, move it somewhere else, move the other house over 1 fucking pixel, then move this other one back again, costing me in excess of hundreds of thousands of bells and like 3 or 4 days. And I'm sorry, Nintendo, that's a fucking joke. Okay?
Yeah, I had to use like my shovel a lot to map out units, consistently to mark bridges and slopes. And...
I mean, it did mean that I made a deer-shaped pond next to the house with the deer in it, but
exactly how you
that was like a happy accident more than anything. Okay, yes, Spiritfarer number 3. I see it. I love it. It's great. Okay, and now this is the This is the hardest game.
Can I just say that there's a massive gulf for me personally between these 2 games and the rest?
Okay, yes, true.
Like, huge.
Yeah, sure, totally. I totally get what you mean. Totally. These are 2 of the best games I've ever played in my entire life, and are both probably in my top 10 games of all time. And I don't know what the fuck to do, Bally. I texted you and I was like, I have made a mistake, because obviously I haven't played Ori since March when it came out, and I was like, I should probably get the whole year. We've both been like, we should probably replay that game. We should probably get back to that game.
It's been a busy year for games, so it's been hard to go back to Ori. But
and so I'm like, I should probably do a hard mode playthrough, right? Like, see if that switches things up. I started playing Ori and I like played it for 4 hours straight, and I'm like, fuck, dude. Why did I do this? Fuck. I was all locked in to be like, I know Hades is my game of the year. It's amazing. It's the best game. And I played Ori again, and I beat the entire thing in 3 days, and I couldn't put it down, and it's just fucking phenomenal. And it's one of the best games ever made. And so is Hades. Hades is a perfect video game. There's literally nothing that I have no criticism of Hades. Literally none. There is no objectivity, but in my subjective opinion, Hades is literally a perfect video game. So, personally, I don't know what the fuck to do with my own list, if I'm being honest with you. Can we talk through it? Let's just talk through it. So, Ori, I would say like there are some things in Ori that I would call criticisms, but they're more like personal gripes for me. I loved the difficulty of the escape sequences in the first game, and these ones just are not that hard. I think the toughest one is the last one in the desert, and that one on my hard playthrough maybe took me 3 times to do.
I had more or less the same experience first playthrough. I should say I've replayed the first couple of hours last night. I'm up to Warlock's Cavern or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
so.
Totally. And I don't know if that's because I'm just good at Ori now, and so it's easier for me. But what I will say is when I go back to play Blind Forest, it's not a guarantee that I'm going to get out of the Ginzo tree first time. And usually it's like 4th or 5th time. And I've played the Ginzo tree so many more times than any of these other escape sequences. That one is still the best one in the series.
Yeah. I think I agree with that.
And like I do like the melding of boss fight plus escape sequences, but the 2 times they do it with the frog and with the spider, the escape sequence part of it is just so minimal and really just a way to get you to the next boss fight arena rather than actual escape. You know what I mean?
That really is the biggest difference between the first and second game are the bosses, because I think they add both an event, you taking them on, but they also add like they're almost like characters within the game that you interacted with in some way, but also Will of the Wisp does have more movement options. So like even though those escape sequences are easier, you are doing more things, and I do credit the game for that. Especially
with the first major different power-up you get, which is like the sling ability. Especially in that first boss fight where I love the idea of the water wheel and you getting stuck in it and then coming out of it.
Yeah.
It's just because you have that bandwidth for you to get there. Like, it's just not a challenge. And I think to some degree that challenge is brought by the speed trials, which I love. I think those are great. I always do all of them. And I did all of them again this time, and they are a lot of fun. But again, I think because I've done them before, I did do them like first or second time. But they really do test your ability to string things together quickly.
Yeah.
And they are a good challenge. They're definitely much more challenging than a escape sequence in this game, which, like, the escape sequence, I mean, they're just gorgeous, like, just absolutely stunning set pieces,
like musically, visually,
yeah,
like the added mechanics. They are, as easy as they are super special. Like, they are incredible.
And I think, like, combat wise, it's just such a step up, and I defend the combat of the first game because it is so platforming focused.
But they never make you take on a boss necessarily in the first game. Like, there's maybe one or two where you are essentially jumping around an enemy using your homing in, and it feels a little odd. But it's like a 2-minute battle. There's maybe 2 or 3 of them in the whole game. They're not long. They're not a big deal. And as you say, the focus is the platforming, not the combat. And then obviously Will-O-the-Wisps, where combat is a very large part of the game between boss fights and regular enemies and different weapons you can go to, and there's even like upgrades with this like Hollow Knight style of badges you can wear and things. It's almost like a completely different game in some aspects to the first game, where you have that single fairly basic rudimentary skill tree where you got the 3 spirals, and it works well for that game. That's not a criticism of the first game. Like, these games are just kind of going for 2 different things.
Yeah, they are quite different when you think about it.
Yeah.
And like Will-O-Wisp, actually, so because I was playing on hard, so okay, here's a story for you. So one of my colleagues, he was talking to me about, we were talking about Metacritic stuff, and we're going through like the Metacritic for Ori, and it was 95, and not 95, sorry. I think some website gave it a 95, and he was like, it's an 85, and I'm like, nah, mate, it's a 95. And he was like, that spider boss is the hardest boss that I have fought all year. And I was like, no, it's not. But he was like, but I played it on hard. And I was like, whatever, I'll play it on hard, I'll get there. And so, like, the first area I went to was Moldwood Depths. And I had deliberately chosen what I think is maybe the worst secondary weapon in the game, because I just wanted to stretch this game as far as it would go and see...
Which weapon?
The shuriken, the throwing shuriken.
Okay, that's actually the weapon I picked up first time on my second run, and it doesn't feel great.
Good. That's a good idea, actually, because I think it allows you to understand that all the weapons in this game are kind of viable. Like, I actually really liked using it in the early parts of the game. By the end, I wasn't using it that much, but that's because I really like the light burst ability, not just for platforming stuff, but like...
That, like the lightning bolt thing?
No, it's the fire one that you get from the snow area that sets people on fire. Oh my god, you can kill the frog boss so easily with that thing. I love it. That's why I always go Luma Pools after... Or always. I've only played this game twice, but you know what I mean. I think I'll always go Luma Pools after the snow area, just because that ability is so important for fighting that frog boss. But I went to Moldwood Depths with ostensibly probably... It was like the weapon that I never touched in the first playthrough, because I was like, this is not very good. With that as my secondary, and I barely had much health or energy, and I fought that spider boss for like an hour and a half before being like, I'm giving up. I'm going somewhere else now, because fucking hell, I just wasn't powerful enough. I think that's maybe one of the things that, like, on hard mode, it's a little imbalanced unless you are a certain power threshold, and luckily I knew exactly where to go for the 2 power boosts. You get to like 25% to your attack, and then also while I was going through the next area that I went through, I collected a bunch more health and a bunch more energy, so that when I decided to go back to the spider after doing that other area, I was like, oh, okay, I beat him without a huge amount of trouble. But yes, if you go unprepared to that Moldwood Depth level, which is probably, I would say, the weakest of the 4 areas of the main core of the game, just because it's dark and you have to follow the fireflies. And
it does do scary in a 2D setting quite well, actually, and I credit the game for that.
It does. I think the skittering bug legs and like the environment, it's just like the sound, even the sound of the spiders when you talk to them.
It's like you're dumped into the middle of Hollow Knight again.
Yes, crazy. It's very Hollow Knight. It very, very much is.
There's a lot of Hollow Knight things about this game, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think the reason it's the weakest area is because it slows the game. It's like similar to the holding the orb dark area in the first game that was part of the DLC that was added. It's like the best part about Ori is when it's quick and you're just blitzing through it, and being forced to wait for these fireflies to go to their predetermined areas and slowly navigate the area. And if you go too far away from them, it gets super dark and you just die instantly. Probably my least favorite part of the game, and that's my main critique of it would be like difficulty in the escape sequences and that area. But like I stand by this. The dash, this might be the best dash in a video game. It feels so fast and responsive, and like you need that in boss fights, and you need that in enemy encounters. Like I am just fucking non-stop tapping that dash button when I'm going anywhere. And I'm sure that you're like probably a little less than me, because I'm like Sonic the Hedgehog when I play Ori. I'm just like fucking ripping through areas. There was a point in Blind Forest when I was playing it on Switch where the game like wouldn't load fast enough for me. I was going faster than the game would load the rest of the world in. So that's kind of the pace I'm going at. And I think it was 11 hours total on this hard playthrough versus the 13 that it took me. I got 87%, so I haven't 100%ed it, but pretty much there. And I mean, I fucking couldn't put it down. Again, like I was thinking about it non-stop. I was like, fuck.
Yeah, so I completely agree. I think this game has been criminally under-talked about in sort of Game of the Year discussions. And
maybe it's just our taste, though, right? Like, because I think this is our taste. Like, this is my shit, right? This is unquestionably like the best Metroidvania ever made for me. Yeah. It's just phenomenal on every front.
So like, I have nothing bad to say about Hades either. What I would say is, I think there will be better roguelikes of a similar style to Hades in the next 5 years. I'm not certain that's the case with Will of the Wisps and Metroidvanias. And that's nothing against Hades or in favor of Ori. It's just, I think it's an interesting state of like our personal tastes and the state of those genres.
Hades, okay, so here's the thing, right? Like, we gave Spiritfarer above Animal Crossing, I think in some part because it's a surprise and it's something that knocked us off our feet and we weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
Hades is the fucking epitome of that, right? Like, okay,
you can totally
talk about how like I've definitely become more in love with roguelikes over the last couple of years, and there are ones that like, Slay the Spire, one of the best games ever made. I love Into the Breach, just a phenomenal tactics game. Those games exist. Hades is another level to that. Like, I thought Dead Cells was the best game I played this year until I just completely sidelined Dead Cells for Hades, And that is ridiculous, because I was in love with Dead Cells at the start of this year, and I was like, this is the best action roguelike ever made. And then Hades comes along and is like, hold my fucking beer. It is just... I have played 75 to 80 hours of this game. I have beaten the game 36 times. Keep in mind, you can beat it once and be done. You can beat it 10 times and get credits and be done. I've beaten this game over 3 times the amount since beating fucking credits of this game. I keep playing it after work. Yesterday, I picked it up and was like, let's finish. I was on a run that I was in Elysium, and I was like, let's get to the end of the run, finish it out. Beat the game. I was like, all right, let's try another one. Went through, lost at the end. I was like, well, I'm not going to stop losing. And I ran down my battery to 10%. It was at full. And I have played this game for fucking hours, and yet it still has that iron grip on me to just make me want to play it again and again and again. And that is because it has that rare thing in video games where it just feels good to play, and that is all I need, right? If that is good, don't even think about the characters or the world or the atmosphere or the storytelling or the visuals. Hades is functionally a perfect feeling video game, and that is, if it was just that, it would be a Game of the Year contender. With everything else, it's like one of the best games ever made. It is just a stunning achievement in narrative design, in breaking the conventions of roguelike, in having 6 weapons that are so different but all feel amazing. Every run feels viable. Every boon works with each other in a new and unique way. It has reasons for you to keep playing it with a Pact of Punishment, has reason for you to keep playing narratively with the relationship stuff and getting other characters back together. It never repeats dialogue. It is just hit after punch after punch of fucking phenomenal everything. And you see my problem here, Bally, is like, I love these games both equally, and you have to break the tie here, honestly, because I don't know what the fuck to do with myself.
Okay, well,
my leaning would be, personally, and this is also another factor, neither of us played Ori on Switch. Let's put it out there. I played it on PC, you played it on Xbox. The game is on Switch, and let me get this straight. I will buy it on Switch, probably when it goes on sale next year, and I will play it again because I love it. That I'm just going to put that out there as well. We didn't play Ori on Switch. We can't speak to the Switch version. I've heard it's fantastic.
Yeah. I also want to play it on Series X. Like there's a more optimal version of this game out there I've not experienced that I want to experience.
Yeah, sure, but also like I would like to play this portably because it's that type of game as well.
I also want to play it portably.
Yeah, so we're going to buy this game like 10 more times, obviously. And I'm thinking about buying Hades again on PC just to get 1080p on it because it's only 720 on Switch. I was like, man, just missing out on even more beautiful artwork. Which, oh my goodness, the artwork in Hades, Jesus, people thirsting after those characters, man, on Twitter. I tell you what. I probably would lean Hades, if only because I like in Game of the Year to reward stuff that is new and different. And Ori is just refinement. Ori is the definition of like years and years of game design perfected. Hades, for me, is doing something new, and I will always reward it more for that. Even if, in reality, when I'm talking about my favorite games of all time, Ori might be above Hades. And I know that doesn't make any sense, but when I think about Game of the Year, I think about it in a slightly different way.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. For me, Ori is higher. Both of these games are very, 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 very high up my personal top 10 of the year. Yeah. Hades is much more of a surprise. I agree, Ori, as different as it is to the first game, the new things that it's doing in the second game have obviously been done in other Metroidvanias, most notably a game like Hollow Knight, like we've already discussed.
Right, yes.
And it delivers massively on that package. Like Ori is one of my top 10 games of all time for sure. Hades isn't, but that's I have nothing bad to say about Hades. I did beat this game 10 times. I've been on 45 runs. I have had an absolute blast with this game.
How's Caroline doing in her Hades playthrough?
Good question. Caroline thought it took me 45 runs to get my first clear, so she was like racing it. I've got it, and I'm like,
has she lost all motivation now that she knows?
No, so she got her first clear after 45 runs, I want to say, or 46, can't remember. Cool. And she was quite keen to progress story elements and get the 10 clears, but then she just couldn't get those other clears. She'd constantly get to Hades and die, and then she was like, she lost the energy with it after her getting the one clear. But she still like had a great time with that game, and she's someone who's never played anything like Hades before and had a good time.
Totally. Like one of those things is people on Twitter playing Hades who picked up a Switch to play Animal Crossing, and then they're like, oh, Hades is a thing, I guess, and a lot of people, just diving into it.
Yeah,
which is,
and it was interesting me giving her like my tips, because I think she plays it a lot more like you, MBZ, where she's all about the dash and go in on the offense, and I'm all about the turtle, the range, the cast, like. So that's always a fun dynamic as well, and it's fun having those discussions about Hades. I have nothing bad to say about Hades. I love it. It's very high on my list. I just love Ori more. It was the reason I got an Xbox One. I played Blind Forest earlier this year.
Yeah. That's why I feel bad about it, because we didn't play on Switch. We didn't play on Switch. I think. Yep.
I wouldn't hold that personally as a technicality against it. If it was a 3D third-person game, I probably would hold it against it a bit more. But
right, because like from what people say, it does run very well.
If I knew that there was a bad running version of our potential GOTY on Switch, I'd feel a bit like you in Bloodstained last year. It just doesn't feel quite right. But I personally would have Ori 1, Hades 2. I think Ori is one of the most ThisNintendoLife games there could be. And as a newcomer to Ori this year, I'm very up on it. And all the issues I have with Hollow Knight, like I think Ori just does better, where it is a bit easier. It's not the hardest game.
It's the platforming focus, right? Like that's what I care a lot about in this genre. Is a lot of Metroidvanias do the navigational stuff super well, and I think Hollow Knight is one of those. But like the movement in Hollow Knight is fine, right? Like it feels good. It's good, really polished, well-made game, but that game is more about being slow and methodical, where Ori is all about just getting places and doing stuff.
Like I really love the new areas or the new feeling areas. Obviously the whole game's new, but like Luma Pools is just
I mean, it's the best underwater level ever made in video games.
It's incredible. It's so incredible. And I love all the spattering of new characters with all their voices and things in Ori.
I love that there's a hub area, the home base where you...
Oh, I love it. With this like warm home-like music that just makes you feel good about being back in the hub, spending your money, getting your upgrades and going back on your quest. And
it's like, it's this bastion of safety, which you don't really have in the first game, right? Like, I guess...
It's very much like, like the Windfall Island of a Zelda game, like it's the hub area that you return to and you will go to via going to your next adventure.
And there's the big Gorlick you give the ore to and you build up the... I wish there was a bit more to like gain from recreating the building the area, you kind of like get some houses, you go inside, you hit a few boxes and there's some spirit light and it's like, all right, I guess sure, this is my reward for getting all these collectibles. But all these are just such fucking minor criticisms for just a superb game.
It's incredible. If you've not played Ori Will of the Wisps, I personally prefer it to the first game. Like we've discussed, I think they're going for very different things. I agree with you about ways in which the first game is better. But yeah, I think Will of the Wisps is just phenomenal, and I would like it above Hades. Yeah. Sounds like you're personally potentially up for that.
Yeah. Oh god, this is literally the hardest 1 and 2 I've ever had in a game of the year. Like never before. And I put this on myself for replaying the fucking game again, which was good. Obviously, it made me realize how much I just adore it.
Having played a couple hours last night, I was like, this is just gaming heaven right now.
Yeah. And
I love Hades. I don't feel like I'm in gaming heaven when I'm playing it, and it's like new definition of good feeling video games. But
here's the thing though about it, is like I played Ori and I was like, do I like Hades that much? And then last night I played Hades and I was like, do I like Ori that much? Like my favorite is the one I'm playing at the time. So fuck, man. Okay, I think if we give it to Ori, I think that probably is more of a TNL game of the year.
That's ultimately what this list is.
Yeah, when I think about it, it's more like this list is compromised between us and our joint love for something.
Yeah,
and I think our joint love for Ori is stronger than our joint love for Hades. Much as Hades is literally fucking perfect, there is nothing wrong with it. It is like I will play Hades for years. I will play Ori for years as well, but in a different way, right? Ori will be like Hades. I will marry Hades. I will like have multiple one-night stands with Ori. You know what I'm saying? Like, fucking, oh Jesus. Hades will win Game of the Year, and it's already won Game of the Year from so many other people. It's got its dues, and I agree with all those people. They are all correct. They are also all wrong because Ori is one of the best games ever made by humans.
I was going to say, like, there are a number of outlets that will give Hades, and as small as we are an outlet. And it's our duty.
If you want to call us an outlet,
it's our duty, in that sense, in some ways, to give it to Ori.
Yeah. I'm there. I'm with you. It's not how I thought this would go a week ago. Let me tell you that.
Well, Ori only came to Switch like a couple of months ago or something, right? So
it was like September, yeah. So it kind of disrupted our plans. Otherwise, Hades would have just walked in without an issue.
Yes.
But
I agree.
But I'm glad it did, and I'm very excited to play it. I'm sure it's going to go on sale over holiday and stuff like that. It was 50% off Steam the other day, so we'll get that soon. But all right, are we happy with this list? Any movers or shakers? Anything we want to change at all, Bally?
Let me just have a little look at it. I'm pretty happy. I think
it's a pretty strong list overall.
We've set out our views on these games to a degree where I'm very happy with. From what we've said, this list makes sense as the top 10.
Yeah. Oh, but what if Hades was number 1? I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry. I can't.
Do you still look back on last year and think Luigi's Mansion 3 was number 1?
Yeah, totally. Like, I haven't... It's one of those games that you just play it once and you're like, that was fucking brilliant.
Yeah,
but like,
no, I agree.
Luigi's Mansion 3 doesn't come close to the top games this year. I'm sorry. It's a brilliant game. It's one of the best games on Switch. But, like, this is just not even fair when you compare it to this, It's crazy. This feels to me like 2015, where like Blind Forest and Witcher 3 came out, and I'm like, these are instantly two of my top 5 games of all time.
I mean, for our show, we also did 2017 with Breath of the Wild and Odyssey, and
true,
like 17 was big. And
then
18 and 19, I would say, were bigger away from Nintendo systems, generally speaking.
Well, 2019 had a lot of Nintendo's published output. There was Astral Chain alongside Link's Awakening Remake and Pokemon, as well as Luigi's Mansion.
True.
Lots of stuff. Like the back half of 2019 was stacked actually for Nintendo published stuff. But
it's quality, not quantity, and
I mean, just look at our top 3 are all independent games on this list.
Yeah.
Obviously, like Ori is technically funded by a big studio, but like that's a small team, man, and they have made there is no more AAA 2D game that exists, I think, compared to Ori. Like, it is the most budget 2D game I've ever seen, I think.
Yeah.
So
nothing really comes close in that space.
No, it doesn't. I mean, Spiritfarer, I like his art style wise, but like...
Yeah, it kind of meant Metroidvanias, but yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Spiritfarer's a Metroidvania to some degree. Gotta get that icebreaker, man. Gotta get that icebreaker.
Shall we run through our top 10?
Go on, run down the list.
Okay, number 10 is Kentucky Route Zero. Number 9 is Blood Roots. Number 8 is Carto. Number 7 is Paper Mario Origami King. Number 6 is Carrion. Number 5 is Streets of Rage 4. Number 4 is Animal Crossing New Horizons. Number 3 is Spiritfarer. Number 2 is Hades. And number 1 is Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Saying number 2 Hades just hurts my heart. I'm not sure I can do that. Oh boy. Oh god. Oh. Well, we did it, Bally. We made a list. List, of course, full of compromise. The TNL Game of the Year, a game neither of us played on a Nintendo system. Round of applause for us. Truly geniuses. Truly, we have found the loophole. We've made it work. Yeah.
Well,
it was great.
It's not Nintendo's fault Game Pass exists. I mean, come on.
Well, no, of course not. But maybe they should get their fucking act together.
Maybe they should do that.
Okay. Great. It's a great list. I enjoy it a lot. I've got a surprise, Bally.
Oh boy.
We had obviously a bunch of people in our Discord talk about their favorite games of the year, a lot of which we read during the email segment. I went through and did a bit of a point system. I gave 5 points to a game that was in a number 1 slot, 4 to one that was number 2 slot, and so on and so forth. Like 1 point for a number 5 slot, basically.
Okay. Cool.
So I have tallied the TNL community on Discord's top 5 games of 2020. So let's go through them. Number 5, Paper Mario and the Origami King. Well done, Paper Mario. Done very well there. Number 4, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, a game neither of us have played, which I don't think would come anywhere close, but number 4, Hyrule Warriors. I should say number 5 and number 4, very big gap between the top 3 and those two. Okay. Those two don't have as many points total. And obviously, like, this is our community, so there's a bunch of different games on here represented that only one person might have played versus, multiple people.
Yeah.
Number 3 is Hades at number 3.
You thought it felt weird saying Hades was number 2.
I know. It feels even weirder now.
Interesting.
Hades at number 3.
I thought the community was a big fan of Hades.
Number 2. Can you guess number 2, Bally?
Is number 2 Spiritfarer?
It is. Spiritfarer is our TNL community number 2. Congratulations. What a great pick, community. Good job. Number 1, of course, is Animal Crossing, but not by much. Animal Crossing, by a mere 2 points, beat Spiritfarer. So it was very close. If one person hadn't posted in there, Spiritfarer could have been walking away with the TNL Community Game of the Year. But
interesting.
But a very respectable list there.
Yeah. Everyone needs to go play Ori. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know. Ori was on here. I think only 2 people had played it, and it got only 4 points, unfortunately. So yeah. But there you go. That was the TNL Community Game of the Year. I'll do that again next time if
a good idea.
We get some more of those. Maybe next time we'll just make an official form of like fill this out and put your nominations in, and then we can maybe put that on Twitter and get some more people involved. Yeah. Sweet. Well, I think that does it. That wraps us up for like 2 hours of talking about video games. Much less spicy, I think, this year, but I think that's just because there's good video games, we agree on a lot of them. I mean, the sucker punch of the year was Bally just fucking heel turning on Animal Crossing. I didn't see that coming. Oh boy.
I'm happy for it to be number 4. I didn't want it to be up in the higher echelon discussion.
Sure.
I felt the other 3 games were, but I like I was saying, I think there is a huge gap between Hades and Spiritfarer.
Yeah, totally.
Good discussion.
Great. Well, let's close out the show, Bally. Tell me some stuff that's going on. Give me some updates.
Oh, so much going on. So much. Okay, let's talk about the stuff that's going to happen before the end of the year. First of all, we are going to discuss a series that's close to our hearts, and especially having watched that finale, I want to talk about that show, and that is The Mandalorian Season 2. We're going to do a spoiler cast for the whole season. That's going to come out sometime between now and the next show. We're just going to sit down at some point and have a little discussion. And that's available to everyone, so that will go up shortly. We're also,
in the tradition of Star Wars bonus podcasts, which if you've been listening to for a while, you know, that's what we do.
Which Disney have started upon us.
Jesus, man, we're going to have so many. If all these shows come out, I don't know what to do.
For the last 2 years, and MZ, I think you've been doing it for 4 years at this stage, or 5
Maybe
years?
5 or 6, I'm not sure.
Year? Anyway, we've been making video versions of our personal Game of the Year list. These are cross-platform games that came out in the year lists. We're both going to be making those videos between now and the end of the year. And MZ had a very good idea that, hey, we should put those out in podcast form. So they normally take about 15, 20 minutes each. Maybe this year might go a bit longer. But we're going to put those out as podcasts so that people who maybe don't see them on YouTube can listen to those to get our cross-platform games, personal Game of the Year lists.
Yeah.
And then finally, this is something to look out for in the new year. If you hadn't noticed, we had discussions on Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine, and to complete the trilogy, we're going to be playing Mario Galaxy over the Christmas period. You love to hear it, and we're going to talk about it in January.
After Super Mario Sunshine, time to redeem the podcast by playing a good game.
I think we both agree Galaxy is the cream of the crop of that bunch, and we're looking forward to playing that. And obviously, because we're going straight into 2021, our first episode of 2021 will be our predictions for Nintendo for the year of 2021. Who knows what we'll come up with. We'll obviously look back on our 2020 predictions, which will be a very interesting experience given what 2020 has been. But then the second show in January, we're going to be talking about Mario Galaxy. So send in your thoughts to ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. That is ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. We'd appreciate your thoughts on Galaxy. And you can also post in our Discord server, link to that in the description.
And you can send some predictions as well if you want.
Yes, do send your predictions for Nintendo in 2021. We'd love to read those out on the show.
All of them are just going to be, they do nothing because Nintendo have no idea what's going on with
Based
the pandemic.
on the situation they're in, yes, it's who knows what they'll be doing.
Who knows, yeah.
But it's always worth making some predictions. So yeah, send those in to the email address that I already
can't
said.
wait to just read back our predictions and see how fucking wildly wrong
it's gonna
we
be
were.
interesting.
Because who saw a global pandemic coming? Let's be honest.
Yes. Weird indeed.
Weird.
But yeah, lots to look forward to, even if we are almost at the end of 2020.
Indeed. We would obviously like to thank people who make this show possible, our patrons over on patreon.com/ThisNintendoLife. Bally, we have some specific patrons to thank.
Yes, thank you to our $10 tier patrons. They are Zach S., Atari Alex, Thomas, Matthew, and my fiance Caroline. Thank you for your support. And thank you to all of our other patrons. It's hugely appreciated, especially in the year that we've already discussed, being 2020. If you want to listen to our non-Tendo combined top 5 games of the year, we recorded that last week. You can pay a single $1 to listen to that show of This Nintendo Life, and that was a good fun discussion. I had a good time with that one. I think we have
got
more,
heated.
We have more. I would argue we have more differing views on non-Nintendo games perhaps than we do on Nintendo games.
We totally do,
especially
yes,
when it's a year away from Fire Emblem. I'd argue as well. So
yeah, true. Yes, very, very good.
That was a fun discussion. So if you want to hear that, it's obviously for $1. Patreon.com/ThisNintendoLife.
Great. You can find us all over the internet. We are on Twitter. If you go to @TNL Podcast, you can find us there, linked to our YouTube channel, our Discord, all that type of thing. So yeah, head over there. You can find me on Twitter @LordNBZ. where I talk about how I keep using the word satisfying in my Game of the Year script. I need to change it. My vocabulary about it is quite good, but then a
lot of satisfying games this year.
A lot of just satisfying things. I've already talked about all of them, right? Like fucking Blaze Fielding, Hair Flick, Sheep Shearing, and Spiritfarer. I mean,
so
Hades,
satisfying.
Just everything in Hades is satisfying, you know?
I find I have to be in a real certain mindset to write my script.
I need to give a shout out to Meg's voice actor in Hades.
Yes.
Something about the scratchy lilt of her voice just is amazing. It's just one of my favorite performances of the year. So shout out to whoever does Meg's voice acting. Very weird thing, but yeah. Smiley, continue before I just fucking went off track.
I was just saying, I find writing my script for the Game of the Year video that I have to be in the right mindset, and I often just write the whole thing in a oneer. And
I definitely fall down a hole of. Yeah. I just finished mine today. It's 4,500 words long, and I'm like, Jesus, okay.
Because I find myself, if I'm not in the mood, I'm just typing up a paragraph about a game, and I'm like, this just sounds awful. What am I even doing? This is a good game. I like it because, and it's just come on, you've got more to it than that.
Give me the nuance, Valley. I need the nuance takes, you know? Oh, dear. Great. Did you even say your Twitter handle? I talked so much.
Oh, my Twitter handle. God, how could you forget my Twitter handle? Right.
Yeah.
My Twitter handle is @Ballyman91. That's BALLYMAN 91. That's also my name on PlayStation. Please add me, especially if you have done some Astro's Playroom speedruns, because I would like to beat your times over the festive period.
You know what? I haven't even checked speedruns in Ori. You're on my friends list on Game Pass for Xbox stuff, so you should appear on the Ori speed trial list.
Yeah, I saw Capsule J, but I didn't see you.
Interesting.
Also, my playtime for the first game is apparently 105 hours because that's just what apparently the Xbox does. So maybe I don't want to have this fight.
Wow, Bally, you really did play a lot of Ori this year.
Yeah, I every nook and cranny of that game. Loved
every
it.
Nook and cranny. Boy, great. Coming apart at the seams, Bally. It's all going to pieces here at the end of 2020. What do you expect? It's been a hell of a year.
What are you?
You can find the show in loads of different places. We put it out on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify, on Stitcher, any podcasting app that you have. You usually just look up This Nintendo Life, download it, subscribe to us, leave us a review on iTunes. That's really, really helpful. Helps us.
That's the number one Christmas gift we would love.
Absolutely. I would love that from you, my favorite Santas, all of our listeners.
It's much better than a partridge in a pear tree.
Absolutely. I would take it over that any day of the week, I'll tell you what. So yeah, that is gonna close us out, I guess, Bally. Anything to any wisdom at the end of 2020? What do you got to say for yourself?
It's been a tough year.
Yes,
but I think this year has proven the strength of what video games can do when you are at home and it's rainy outside and it's COVID outside, and it's you know what? There's some really great video games that came out this year. And I think it really just showed the strength of the industry that during a COVID pandemic, we can have a lot of great times with video games, being safe and connecting online with people. I think that's just been a great time.
Absolutely. It's great. Yeah, I look forward to another year. What are we, 7 years now? It's starting to get...
So we started in November 2013 and we're about to go into January 2021.
It's over 7 years now of this show, which is fucking wild to me. How is that? That doesn't make sense. But anyway, we'll continue to do it.
What year did the PlayStation 4 come out?
It's 2013, I believe. Yeah.
So there we go. We've done the whole generation.
We've done the whole generation.
The whole Nintendo generation.
Amazing. Great. Well, thanks everybody. We will see you very soon with some more podcasting, some more Nintendo, some more video games. Have a great Christmas. Have a great New Year. And we'll see you in 2021. Until then, thanks, folks. And bye-bye. The musical interludes used on today's show were the remix of One Winged Angel from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, copyright Square Enix and Nintendo 2020, and In the Blood from Hades, copyright Supergiant 2020.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Okay, I'm going to have to pause because my battery on my noise cancelling is like cutting in and
all right,
out.
let me do a clap. Let's do a clap.
Do a clap.
Okay,
Be right back.
Do a clap. I'm doing the clap. I'm doing the clap. Bally was a stupid boy. He didn't charge his batteries on his headphones because he is stupid and he didn't think about it before we were going to record a 17-hour podcast. Bally, why did you do that? That was bad, very bad. Who likes to listen to me singing? Bally's an idiot. Everybody does. What the fuck am I doing? Are you back yet? I don't think he's back. He has no fucking idea what I'm doing.